Chapter 554. As the sound of Lin Xian, Er's voice faded, numerous incomparably sharp gazes instantly turned towards Qin Wentian as a terrifying pressure bore down on him. In the surroundings there were over 10 geniuses gathered here. All of their hearts were higher than the heavens, and when they heard that the number one beauty under the heavens, Lin Xian, was in the immortal Ripple Pavilion, they naturally wanted to see for themselves what sort of woman she was, daring to cause so much trouble for the geniuses here. Lin Xian left a deep impression in their hearts. Earlier in the Illusionscape battle, it was as though their cultivation bases were the same. Quite a few geniuses were defeated by Lin Xian, causing their hearts to be filled with shock. Initially, they thought that Lin Xian, would be a weak and frail woman who only relied on her charm to seduce men. Who would have thought that she was actually so outstanding, swiftly leaving behind an indelible impression in their hearts. But right now Lin Xian's words undoubtedly caused everyone to lose all face. Out of all the geniuses here, Sir Qin was undoubtedly the number one. Who was this Sir Qin? He actually dared to proclaim himself to be number one among them? I've never heard of any heavenly dipper sovereign surnamed Qin before. Who is this Sir Qin that Fairy Lin is talking about? The saint child of the supreme demon sect swept his gaze over to Qin Wentian, his demonic chi cold and filled with a biting cold battle intent. After which, he turned his gaze back to Lin Xian, wanting to see if her words were true or false. Earlier in the Illusionscape battle, he didn't manage to obtain victory. His opponent's illusionary arts were extremely terrifying, and it was as though there was no end to the number of clones he could kill. Within the battle sword sect, comprehending the 14 sword strikes, in the royal palace of Yi, enraged because of a beauty, other than Sir Qin who jumped levels to kill Yi Kongfan, who else could it be? Lin Xian smiled as she turned her gaze over to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian was initially somewhat unhappy. After all, a single sentence from Lin Xian had pushed him to the heart of the storm. However, Lin Xian's eyes were filled with sincerity, without the slightest bit of hypocrisy. It was as though her words were spoken from the depths of her heart. In addition to that beautiful countenance of hers that could bring calamity to the masses, it was truly impossible for anyone to feel hatred towards her. What kind of genius is Yi Kongfan from Yi? Killing him can actually be considered a battle achievement? The saint child of the supreme demon sect spoke in arrogance. He didn't even glance at Qin Wentian as he coldly stated, "The number one ranker Fairy spoke of. Killing him is as easy as flipping my palms. Saint child, your cultivation base is the same as Yi Kongfan, both at the peak of the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. If you are 2 levels lower, I wonder if you would still dare to boast so shamelessly." An expression of disappointment appeared on Lin Xian's face when she heard the arrogant words of the saint child of the supreme demon sect. She faintly replied, "My so-called number one ranking is only based on my talent, not combat prowess." Of Lin Xian's words, Lin Xian of anger, of disappointment, of Qin of. Saint child, if you want to twist words and force logic, Xian has nothing to say. Among the geniuses who entered the immortal martial realm this time around, I'm afraid the saint child can't even be considered a heaven's chosen. What use is the ranking monument? Lin Xian didn't mince her words, actually starting a dispute with the saint child of the supreme demon sect. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the saint child of the supreme demon sect as he faintly spoke. Fairy's words are truly looking down on me. As the saying goes, those who walk different paths cannot make plans together. The people Xian befriended are all people who understand me. Lin Xian coldly spoke, her meaning was clear without words. Although Qin Wentian was the saint child of the supreme demon sect, he wasn't someone she wanted to befriend. Ha! The saint child of the supreme demon sect started laughing maniacally. His laughter was like a howl, causing the heavens and earth to tremble unceasingly. His gaze abruptly turned over, staring in the direction of Qin Wentian. Abruptly, his eyes widened in anger as he howled in madness. Instantly, the heavens and earth trembled unceasingly as a gigantic maw of blood appeared in the air, descending from the heavens, directly pressing down on Qin Wentian, wanting to swallow him whole. What a powerful bestial roar! Duan Han's eyes flickered with a cold light as he slashed out with his palms. The black-colored sword slashed out, directly cleaving the gigantic mouth into two. The aftershocks from the aftershocks blasted onto the bodies of the disciples of the battle sword sect, causing their robes to flutter in the wind as their clothes were torn into shreds. What's more, the battle sword sect? Duan Han asked. The blood-eyed demonic wolf mount of the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon sect coldly glanced over, its eyes gleaming with a blood-red light, causing the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Number one among all the geniuses here? The Saint Child of the Supreme Demon sect stopped howling. He turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian, his eyes like a demon, tyrannical and sharp. Lin Xian, after we enter the immortal martial realm, I want you, the number one beauty under the heavens, to become my slave. As for the number one you speak of, he shall become my mount. As the sound of his voice faded, the blood-eyed demonic wolf mount let out a low growl before vanishing from sight, leaving behind an incomparably arrogant voice. Shameless boasting. Lin Xian's clear eyes gleamed with coldness. Her fingers plucked the strings of her zither as an intense killing intent gushed forth. Today, I've witnessed Fairy Lin's glory. If there's a chance in the future, let us meet again in the immortal martial realm. A voice rang out, only to see the silhouette of a young man drifting away. Other than this, the other geniuses on the other buildings also departed. Lin Xian said that Qin Wentian was the number one among all the geniuses here. There was naturally no meaning for them to remain here. Although they were competitive in their hearts, it was impossible for them to directly act against Qin Wentian. If they did so, wouldn't their hearts be a little too weak? They would remember Lin Xian's words. In the immortal martial realm, the ranking monument would naturally bear witness to everything. From afar, Shang Tong coldly glanced at Qin Wentian as killing intent flickered in his eyes, after which, his silhouette flickered as well, temporarily departing. Qin Wentian was initially preparing to bid his farewell, yet Lin Xian turned her gaze over as she smiled. Sir Qin, do you mind coming to the immortal Ripple Pavilion for a chat? Qin Wentian's gaze stiffened as he stared at the smile on Lin Xian's face, after which, he nodded his head lightly as his silhouette flickered, flying towards the immortal Ripple Pavilion. Why is it that all the good things under the heavens are monopolized by him alone? Lu Yun gloomily commented. Duan Han's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he spoke in a low voice. This woman is indeed worthy of being a fairy from the Celestial Maiden sect. In that battle earlier, even if I were to continue, I wouldn't be able to defeat her. Such a woman isn't someone ordinary people can control. After speaking, Duan Han directly turned and departed. Although Lin Xian was polite from the start, with a smile on her face, from her conversation with the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon sect, one could tell that the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon sect couldn't even enter her eyes. Only characters like Qin Wentian, who could defeat her in the illusory realm, would have the qualifications to get close to her. Lu Yun and the others also had a look of disappointment on their faces. Earlier, they were all defeated by Lin Xian in the illusory realm and naturally knew their own limits. They all turned and departed, leaving behind only a shadow-like figure standing at the side. Those from the battle sword sect didn't bother with him. They knew that this Mufeng was like a shadow of Qin Wentian, as though he didn't exist at all. In the immortal Ripple Pavilion, the curtains were pulled apart. Momentarily, countless people felt a sense of loss, as though they had lost something. Lin Xian was known as the number one beauty under the heavens. Just a single glance at her would cause people to be unable to forget her beauty. Even those geniuses would feel a strong desire to protect her, let alone ordinary people. At this moment, countless figures stood there, staring at the silhouette behind the curtains. It was as though watching her quietly was a wonderful thing. Lin Xian changed her position, her back facing the curtains. In front of her, there was a lake with many small boats floating on it. These were all people from the Celestial Maiden sect. Fairy, do you have any instructions for me? Qin Wentian stood beside Lin Xian, staring at her from such a close distance. Qin Wentian could clearly sense the charm of this maiden. That soft and supple skin, those soul-stirring eyes, caused people to have an urge to rush up and pull her into their embrace. A faint fragrance permeated the air, exuding a sense of elegance and nobility. Puchi. Lin Xian smiled, akin to 100 flowers blooming, incomparably beautiful. Sir Qin, why must you be so restrained? I've always treated Sir Qin as my bosom friend. Sir Qin, please don't be so distant. Wouldn't Xian'er be embarrassed? Lin Xian'er's every frown and every smile was extremely soul-stirring. There wasn't the slightest hint of seduction within. However, this kind of natural beauty was even more attractive. That was an unfathomable natural charm. Her words and smile caused Qin Wentian to feel as though the distance between the two of them had shortened greatly. He was a little dazed as he stared at her. Shaking his head, he smiled. "Fairy, you should know how great your charm is. It's hard not to be restrained." "Oh." A shy expression appeared on Lin Xian'er's face. After which she smiled. "Sir Qin, you can just call me Xian'er. As for charm, how does Xian'er compare to the Holy Maiden? In my heart, Qingcheng is naturally the most beautiful. But in terms of charm, I'm afraid Fairy Qin is a notch higher, making it hard for people to restrain themselves." Qin Wentian bluntly stated. Mo Qingcheng was a beauty that could topple empires. Her beauty was flawless and perfect, pure and holy, cold in front of others, causing people to not dare to look at her directly. But Lin Xian'er was different. She caused people to feel an intense desire to protect her, wanting to get close to her. Sir Qin is also someone infatuated with love. It's just that if the Holy Maiden knew that Sir Qin is here, she would definitely scold me for being a demoness. Lin Xian'er laughed. After which, her fingers strummed the zither as the melodious melody rang out once more. The melody was light and beautiful, and unknowingly, Qin Wentian was intoxicated by it. Listening to the melody, it was as though he had forgotten the passage of time. The shadow of the sun slanted to the west as night descended. A full moon hung in the sky, cascading its moonlight onto the tranquil surface of the lake. In addition to the melody, it was indescribably beautiful. As Qin Wentian listened to the melody, he actually recalled all the bits and pieces of his life with Mo Qingcheng. Occasionally, he would think of that silly lass Qing'er. A light smile appeared on his face. This joyous melody seemed to be the sound of nature bestowed to lovers. Turning his head, Qin Wentian glanced at Lin Xian'er, who was playing the zither beside him. Under the illumination of the moonlight, her beauty was so breathtaking that it caused people to be breathless. Lin Xian'er seemed to have sensed his gaze. She also turned her gaze onto Qin Wentian as she smiled. From the peaceful smile on Sir Qin's face, "I can tell that you love your wife very much. If the Holy Maiden misunderstands Sir Qin, please tell her that there are many misunderstandings regarding the Celestial Maiden sect. Xian'er isn't someone who would fall in love with romance. In the future, if I can't find a suitable man who will treat me wholeheartedly, I will follow the example of my master and remain unmarried for the rest of my life." Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Could it be that the sect leader of the Celestial Maiden sect didn't marry because she hadn't found a suitable man? Even a character like Nangongzhu couldn't move her heart. Indeed, her heart was higher than the heavens. What kind of man does Fairy Qin want to find? Qin Wentian curiously asked. There are 8 era-suppressing geniuses at the Heavenly Dipper realm in our royal sacred region. I'm sure they would only be stronger and not weaker compared to Sir Qin. Xian'er's words don't have any intentions of belittling Sir Qin. It's just that since these 8 people are said to be able to suppress an entire era, I'm sure they all have heaven-shaking talents and aren't something the saint child of the Supreme Demon sect can contend against. I wonder what kind of demeanor these 8 people have. Lin Xian'er smiled. Qin Wentian didn't mind as he smiled. For a character like Xian'er, I'm sure she would be able to find the man she loves. It's already late. Xian'er, I have to return. Qin Wentian stood up. Lin Xian'er smiled and nodded. Sir, take care. Remember to send Xian'er my regards to the Holy Maiden. As she spoke, she even winked at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to perspire. He didn't know if Mo Qingcheng would be jealous or not. We'll meet again in the future. With a flicker of his silhouette, Qin Wentian soared through the air and departed. Lin Xian'er stared at the departing back of Qin Wentian as a smile appeared on her face. She took out an ancient scroll with a few names written on it. After which, she lifted her brush and inscribed the words Qin Wentian on it. Chapter 555. Qin Wentian returned to the inn, only to see Mo Qingcheng standing in front of the window, gazing at the scenery outside. The moonlight illuminated her flawless countenance, making her seem like a celestial maiden under the moon. Qingcheng, were you waiting for me? Qin Wentian walked behind Mo Qingcheng, stretching out his hands to embrace her slender waist. A gentle smile flashed past Emo Qingqing's face as she leaned back, leaning against Qin Wentian. After which, she seemed to have thought of something, as a coquettish expression appeared on her face. To think that you would still be willing to come back after having a long chat with the #1 beauty under the heavens, Emo Qingqing softly spoke as though she was jealous. Which girl in the world wouldn't be jealous? Although Emo Qingqing was a holy maiden, she was no exception. Who asked this young man to be the man she deeply loved? However, she still wouldn't interfere in Qin Wentian's matters. It was fine as long as he was happy. If not, she wouldn't have intentionally allowed him to leave during the day. No matter how beautiful you are, how can you be more beautiful than Qingqing? Qin Wentian hugged her tightly, his face pressed against Emo Qingqing's. Emo Qingqing's lips curled up in a smile, feeling joy in her heart when she heard Qin Wentian's sweet words. Humph, Emo Qingqing snorted as she turned her head slightly, leaning against Qin Wentian's face. Their gazes locked, and a hint of shyness flashed past Emo Qingqing's face. She hurriedly shifted her head away, as a soul-stirring shyness could still be seen on her countenance. How is the celestial maiden from the celestial maiden sect? Emo Qingqing asked in a light voice. A rare beauty. Although she appears weak, her heart is as lofty as the heavens. Qin Wentian replied in a low voice. Emo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light when she heard this. Today, only you are able to enter the heavenly chamber. You the Dumbo, is the one Lin Xian'er values the most. Doesn't that mean that in Lin Xian'er's eyes, you will become a character equal to the heavens? Why, can't a Dumbo like me do? Qin Wentian joked. Fine, at least this Lin Xian'er has some foresight. Emo Qingqing winked at Qin Wentian as a mischievous expression appeared on her face. Of course. Don't you know who my wife is? Qin Wentian teased. Right now in front of Emo Qingqing, he didn't feel the slightest bit of restraint. This empire-toppling maiden was the resting place of his soul. Emo Qingqing couldn't endure Qin Wentian's teasing. She nudged Qin Wentian's body with her arms. Her face was incomparably beautiful, causing Qin Wentian's heartbeat to quicken. Lin Xian'er's aspirations are extremely lofty. She told me that if she didn't meet a husband who was loyal to her in this lifetime, she would never marry. She also revealed that the people she paid attention to should be those 8 era-suppressing heavenly dipper sovereigns. Even I'm not worthy enough to enter her eyes. Qin Wentian laughed. Emo Qingqing's lips twitched as she lowered her head, staring at Qin Wentian. She gently laughed. How can there be so many era-suppressing characters? In the future, when these characters contend against each other, only 1 or 2 of them would be able to suppress the era-suppressing era. Yet, she doesn't even know that one of them is right in front of her. She truly has no foresight. Qin Wentian stared at the beautiful maiden who had her head tilted upwards with a smile on her face. Boundless tenderness appeared in his heart as he pressed his lips forward, causing Emo Qingqing's beautiful eyes to blink. She had actually delivered herself into a demonic palm. After that, she felt her body becoming light as someone hugged her by the waist. This night was naturally incomparably wondrous. Early in the morning, the warm rays of the sun cascaded in through the windows. Qin Wentian walked out of his room, and when he saw the beautiful maiden who was dressing up in front of the window, a hint of warmth appeared in his heart. This empire-toppling maiden had been acquainted with him ever since they were young, and after experiencing so many trials and tribulations, they were finally able to walk together. He silently vowed in his heart that he would never let Qingqing suffer again in this lifetime. Emo Qingqing's long hair was akin to a waterfall, cascading down her back. She turned her head and glanced at Qin Wentian as she gently laughed. You still know to wake up. Yesterday was too blissful, so I naturally woke up a little later. Qin Wentian laughed, causing Emo Qingqing's face to instantly turn red. She glared fiercely at Qin Wentian. How did this Dumbo become so naughty? Where did he still look like he was when he was young? Although he was glib-tongued, he wasn't dumb at all. Right now, the atmosphere in the immortal martial city is extremely lively. Qingqing, let's go out for a walk later. Qin Wentian laughed. Emo Qingqing's face was still red. If others knew that this pure and holy maiden was teased by Qin Wentian in such a manner, it was unknown what expression they would have. Most probably, they would even have thoughts of killing Qin Wentian. Lightly nodding her head. Mo Qingcheng was naturally willing to spend more time with Qin Wentian. After the two of them finished washing up, they slipped out of the inn. Right now, the atmosphere in the immortal martial city was extremely lively. Experts were as common as the clouds, and the geniuses who usually had their heads held high in the air were all extremely low profile now. This was because these heavens chosen could be found anywhere. After all, the expedition to the immortal martial realm this time around had shaken the entire royal sacred region. There were countless ancient clans and sects in the royal sacred region, and how many heavens chosen would be gathered here today? This could be said to be a gathering of wind and clouds. For a beauty like Mo Qingcheng, no matter where she went, she would always be the center of attention. However, just from her demeanor, one could tell that she was from a major power. Hence, nobody dared to disturb her. Walking beside Mo Qingcheng, Qin Wentian was extraordinarily handsome. Although he didn't exude any aura, his countenance was as bright as the sun, and his eyes were as deep as the abyss, giving off an unfathomable feeling. The two of them walking together caused many to cast envious gazes at them. At this moment, Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared ahead. An intense fluctuation could be felt in the air as a golden light illuminated the skies. Faintly, a thunderous roar could be heard. It's the people from Radiant Gold. They are actually ganging up on a single person. That person is so powerful. From afar, voices rang out as more and more silhouettes appeared, rushing forward. Let's go take a look. Qin Wentian held onto Mo Qingcheng's hand. Their silhouettes flashed as they soared through the air. An instant later, they arrived at the outskirts of the battlefield, standing at the top of an ancient building. In the air in front of them, a resplendent golden light could be seen. Numerous experts from Radiant Gold were clad in golden armor, radiating boundless radiance. They wielded golden spears in their hands, and their attacks were extremely terrifying. The cultivation bases of these people were all at the Heavenly Dipper realm. The weakest was at the 5th level while the strongest was at the 8th level. However, the person they were ganging up on was only at the 7th level. It was unknown what kind of innate technique this person used. His body was actually 10 meters long, resembling an ancient god that could reach the heavens. His eyes shone with a golden light, and his entire body exuded an incomparably terrifying sharpness, as though they were forged from pure gold. Just an ant like you actually dares to proclaim yourself as a heaven chosen? Cultivating the law of metal, claiming to be from Radiant Gold? The gigantic silhouette roared in rage, causing the void to tremble and shatter. An ancient golden spear pierced through the air, directly piercing into his body. The terrifying force caused the ancient spear to pierce into his body, only to discover that the spear was blocked by the golden bones and blood, unable to penetrate any further. What a terrifying defense! Both of them are at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet this person can't even break through the defense of that giant. Qin Wentian's countenance trembled violently. There's always a sky beyond a sky. This person was truly terrifying. That gigantic figure waved his palms as a golden palm imprint the size of a millstone smashed downwards. With a thunderous boom, the body of the person who attacked him was directly crushed into smithereens. Not even dregs remained. The rage of the other experts from Radiant Gold towered up into the sky. They surrounded the gigantic figure, not daring to act recklessly. Their countenances were all ashen, incomparably unsightly to behold. Li Tun, you are too much. An expert from Radiant Gold roared in rage. Upon hearing his words, the countenances of many in the crowd brightened. There were also some who had already guessed the identity of this person, but their countenances didn't change. He's Li Tian from the Heaven Punisher clan. No wonder he's so powerful. Qin Wentian mumbled. Li Tian, a supreme genius from the Heaven Punisher clan of the Desolate Mountain Range, one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses at the Heavenly Dipper realm. He was unrivaled on the sacred battle platform within the same cultivation level. There was no one who could match up to him. Jumping levels to kill was as easy as taking something out of his pocket. What was an era-suppressing genius? It meant that other than these 8, there was no one else who could match up to their radiance. After they matured, they would be the true era-suppressing geniuses. Naturally, who among these 8 would be eliminated, and who would remain would have to depend on their own luck and fate. But there was no need to doubt their strength. Li Tian from the Heaven Punisher clan. It's rumored that he only cultivates a single type of energy, the mandate of metal. Right now, his body is akin to an indestructible golden body. His bones, flesh, and blood are all forged from pure gold. He pursues the pinnacle of the mandate of metal, and when the mandate of metal reaches a certain level, both his offense and defense would be extremely terrifying. Just like this Li Tian, his pursuit of the mandate of metal is his conviction. Mo Qingqing had naturally heard of Li Tian before. At this moment, Li Tian stepped out as his blood surged. Even the blood in his body was golden in color, transforming into a golden long spear that frenziedly extended outwards. With a howl of rage, the golden spear pierced through the air, causing an expert from radiant gold to explosively retreat. However, Li Tian's golden spear flew out of his hand, and with a piercing sound, it pierced through the body of his opponent, causing him to rapidly descend from the air. With a deafening boom, a building collapsed. The golden long spear pierced through the ground, nailing the body of that expert to the ground. Such might was simply terrifying. Wentian, if you suppress your cultivation base to the same level, do you have the confidence to fight against him? Mo Qingqing stared at Qin Wentian as she asked. She had absolute trust in Qin Wentian. She had always believed that Qin Wentian would definitely be able to become an era-suppressing existence. I have no idea. Li Tian didn't use his full strength when fighting against these people. I have no idea how strong his limits are, and I've never tested the strength of his defense before. Qin Wentian shook his head. It was very hard to judge who was stronger just by looking at his opponent's attacks. But this was also the first time Qin Wentian met someone he didn't have the confidence to fight against at the same level. If they fought against each other at the same level, the victor would be unknown. Ants from Radiant Gold, you better take a detour when you see me in the future. Today I shall spare your dog lives. Li Tian coldly spoke, after which, he soared into the air and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Yet he left behind a deep impression in the hearts of the spectators. Given Li Tian's demeanor, the other 7 shouldn't be inferior to him. This trip to the immortal martial realm was truly filled with anticipation. On the ranking monument of the immortal martial realm, would those 8 era-suppressing geniuses be able to occupy the top 8 positions? Chapter 556. The remaining experts from Radiant Gold all had ashen expressions on their faces. They came from an ancient country, and were the most outstanding members of the younger generation, preparing to enter the immortal martial realm. In the center, there was a 7th-level Heavenly Dipper young man with a golden crown on his head. He was a heaven chosen from Radiant Gold, and it was unknown how tyrannical his strength was. The others all stood guard around him, but because of a few arrogant words spoken by Li Tian, a huge battle ensued. Not only that, with so many experts present, none of them could do anything to Li Tian. Li Tian killed a few of them in a domineering manner, leaving behind arrogant words before he soared into the air and departed. Go. That heaven-chosen coldly spoke. His silhouette flickered as he brought the experts from Radiant Gold away, leaving behind a golden glow in the air. There's always someone stronger. There's always someone stronger. These people were all arrogant geniuses, yet they didn't expect to encounter an even more demon-level character like Li Tian, suffering such humiliation. Someone sighed, his words causing many to nod in agreement. The royal sacred region was simply too vast. So vast that you had no idea how many demon-level geniuses would appear here. Remember a few hundred years ago in the immortal martial realm, quite a few era-suppressing geniuses were all killed by a nameless nobody. That incident simply shook the entire royal sacred region. That person domineeringly seized the position of the top ranker of the immortal martial realm. After that, that nameless person grew stronger and stronger, and not long after he exited the immortal martial realm, he was listed as the top ranker of the Mortal King rankings, becoming a character that everyone in the royal sacred region knew of. After that, he forcefully entered the royal sacred sect and became a legend of his generation. There's another battle over there. At this moment, exclamations of shock rang out as the shockwaves from a battle could be felt. However, these shockwaves weren't as intense as when Li Tian fought against the experts from Radiant Gold. Evidently, the combatants weren't as powerful as Li Tian. What's going on today? It's actually that little ancestor from one of the 7 great clans, The D clan. There's actually someone who dares to antagonize him? Another voice rang out, causing an intense commotion as many people sped towards the direction of the battle. That little ancestor from the D clan was extremely famous. The D clan of the 7 great clans. Qin Wentian's countenance flickered. There were 9 sects, 7 clans and 2 empires in the royal sacred region. All of them were at the peak of power. These 7 clans weren't any weaker compared to the 9 great sects, and in fact, they were even stronger compared to several ancient countries. They had existed for tens of thousands of years, and their foundations were extremely deep. The D clan was one of the 7 great clans. Other than that, the reason why the D clan was famous was because one of the Heaven Dipper sovereigns that suppressed the era was from the D clan. Di Shi, one of the era-suppressing geniuses, equal in fame to Li Tian. Not only so, there were also many demon-level geniuses in this generation of the D clan. Di Shi's younger brother Di Yu was a young Heaven's Chosen. His cultivation speed was terrifying, and his combat prowess was exceedingly high. His talent was extremely close to Di Shi's. In the D clan alone, there were already 2 Heavens Chosen, causing countless people to be envious. This Di Yu was born from a noble background, and was a member of the core bloodline of Di Shi. His clan treated him well, using the best conditions to nurture him, and he also had the protection of an era-suppressing genius elder brother. He was truly doted on by the entire clan, and he was arrogant and despotic, doing whatever he wanted to do. The people of the D clan all listened to him, and this was why Di Yu was referred to as the little ancestor of the D clan by outsiders. It was unknown how many troubles he had caused, but his clan and his elder brother Di Shi had always helped him to settle them. Now that Di Yu had appeared, there was no doubt that Di Shi wouldn't be too far away. It seemed like these 2 brothers were already preparing to enter the immortal martial realm. Li Tian's demeanor. I wonder what sort of characters the Heavens Chosen of the D clan are. I wonder if I'll be able to see Di Shi. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, pulling Mo Qingcheng along as they moved towards the direction of the fluctuations. In just an instant, they had already arrived at the farthest point of the battlefield. In front of them, 2 groups of people were currently engaged in battle. One of them had the appearance of a young man around 20 years of age, and his face was still filled with a delicate air. His eyes were filled with an unbridled arrogance, and it was very easy to read his gaze. It made people understand that although this young man had outstanding talent, he hadn't experienced too many trials and tribulations. Hence he looked young and immature. However, one couldn't help but be jealous of his talent. At the age of 20, he already had a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. His combat prowess was even more terrifying, and at such a young age, there weren't many in the entire royal sacred region. Because of Di Yu's innate talent in sensing constellations, he had already condensed a constellation from the 3rd heavenly layer when he was 8 years old, and after that, he stepped onto the path of cultivation. As for the person fighting against Di Yu, he was actually a little comical. It was actually a fatty with a cultivation base at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Although this fatty looked clumsy, his speed was extremely fast. Not only that, his mental energy was also extremely terrifying, and he was able to fight against Di Yu endlessly. When Qin Wentian arrived here, his gaze froze. Among the 2 combatants, the countenance of one of them was so familiar to him. He recognized every single one of them. As for that fatty who was fighting, he was naturally even more familiar with him. This damnable fatty. It's been so long but he still hasn't lost any weight. A gentle smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Other than Fan Lu, who else could it be? As for the group behind Fan Lu, Ouyang Guangxing, Yun Mangi, Chu Mang and Qin Zheng, the 5 of them actually roamed the royal tomb together after they obtained the inheritance. But at this moment Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. That last Bai Qing wasn't here, where did she go? Right now, of those who had entered the royal tomb, Mu Feng was beside him, and now Fan Lu and the rest had also appeared. Only that last Bai Qing was missing. The person Qin Wentian was most worried about was Bai Qing. She cultivated devil arts and her temperament had changed drastically. Only he and her master could influence her. And now that her master had fallen, Bai Qing was also extremely heartbroken. Did she manage to pass the inheritance of the chaotic Sky Devil Emperor? Damnable fatty. This young master will chop you into pieces to feed to my pets. At this moment Diyu roared. His body glowed with a resplendent light, as though he was a divine weapon. With a single palm strike, a gigantic ferocious bird of prey appeared, tearing towards Fan Lu. "Little bastard, your granddaddy is waiting for you." A terrifying light flickered in Fan Li's eyes. It was as though his opponent's attacks had slowed down. Back then, Fan Lu was already proficient in mental energy, and now it was even more terrifying. His body moved like the wind as he retreated, after which numerous bows and arrows appeared in his hands, shooting out in unison. Diyu howled in rage. His attacks were incomparably terrifying, shattering the arrows. However, Fan Lu didn't stop shooting arrows. They were as nimble as his hands and legs. Diyu's attacks were incomparably terrifying, shattering the arrows. Scram! With a howl of rage, a divine bird of prey appeared behind Diyu, radiating a resplendent light. His entire body was like a divine weapon, allowing the arrows to slam into him, not moving an inch. "You dare to proclaim yourself as my granddaddy? You are dead for sure. You have completely angered this young master." Diyu floated in the air. Although his cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, the might he exuded was extremely terrifying. Ever since he was young, he had always been a Heaven's chosen. Only he had the right to insult others who would dare to bully him. "So what if I angered you? This genius will wait and see." Fan Lu coldly spoke. However, at this moment, Diyu's gaze shifted to Yunmangi, who was behind Fan Lu. In the blink of an eye, a warm smile appeared on his face as he spoke. "This fairy sister, have you considered it? Do you want to be this young master's concubine? This young master loves icy beauties like you the most." Yunmingi's countenance flickered with coldness as she stared at Diyu. She didn't expect that there would actually be such a brazen person in the royal sacred region, wanting to capture her in broad daylight and make her his concubine. "You are courting death," Yunmingi coldly spoke. "The things this young master wants, there's nothing I can't obtain. Since fairy sister doesn't want to be my concubine, I can only use force. Don't blame this young master for not knowing how to show tenderness to the fairer sex," Diyu coldly spoke. He had always been unbridled in his actions, but he wouldn't have tried to snatch this woman away. It was just that he had coincidentally met her today and teased her, yet these people actually dared to be so arrogant. Especially that fatty, he actually dared to call him a little bastard. This had completely enraged Diyu. The consequences would be extremely severe. He decided to kill these people, and as for that beautiful fairy sister, he could have a good time with her. He had always been fond of icy beauties like her. This little brat is truly arrogant. Ouyang Guangxing cursed. He thought that he was already arrogant enough back in the Azure continent. But when compared to the person before him, he was still far from being able to compare. Indeed, he has already surpassed you. At this moment, Ouyang Guangxing heard a voice drifting over. Turning his gaze over, he saw 2 silhouettes walking towards him. Ouyang Guangxing's eyes instantly lit up as he laughed uproariously. "Haha, I already guessed that you would come to the immortal martial realm. And as expected, we really met." Chu Mang, Qin Zheng and the rest all stared at Qin Wentian as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Yunmingi's beautiful eyes also flickered with a bright light as she glanced at Mo Qingcheng beside him. Back then in the battle at the Pill Emperor Hall, although they didn't personally experience it, they knew that Mo Qingcheng was actually safe and sound. Not only that, her aura was even more outstanding than before, radiating a resplendent light, as well as a hint of femininity. "Damn boss, we actually met here?" Fan Lu exclaimed in surprise. "Damn fatty, you're still as fat as ever. Where's Xian Xian? Why don't I see her?" Qin Wentian laughed. "She's in the Mystic Maiden Palace of Grand Xia. I don't feel at ease letting her come out to roam the immortal realms with me. I'll go fetch her in the future." Fan Lu grinned, after which, he glanced at Mo Qingcheng beside him before flashing a thumbs up to Qin Wentian. "Boss, you're really good. You can call me sister-in-law now, right?" Mo Qingcheng blushed, causing many in the surroundings to stare in a daze. What day was today? There was actually 2 supreme beauties here. There was no need to mention Mo Qingcheng, but Yunmingi was also extremely beautiful. "Haha, there's actually another beauty here. Sister Fairy, how about you follow me? You'll have a better future compared to them." Diyu laughed uproariously when he saw these people reminiscing about the past. Since they were in cahoots, he wouldn't be polite anymore. Snatching one was snatching, two was also snatching. Not only that, the one at the back seemed to be even more interesting. How beautiful! Most probably, she could even be compared to the rumored number one beauty under the heavens. Chapter 557. The more Du looked at them, the happier he felt. Two such beauties, if his elder brother liked one of them, he would gift one to his elder brother. Although cultivation was the most important thing, he couldn't lack beauties either. Only then would his life be interesting. Du was doted on by countless people. He was originally someone who wasn't afraid of anything in the heavens or earth. Even in the immortal martial city, he didn't restrain himself at all. This was why he teased Yunmingyi when he saw her, yet he didn't expect her to actually insult him. Was she truly courting death? In that case, he could only snatch her away. This Emo Qingcheng was extremely beautiful. Du naturally knew that she might have an extraordinary background. However, he didn't care. As one of the 7 great clans of the royal sacred region, the number of people they feared was already very few. Even if he offended characters like the saint children and holy maidens, he wouldn't care. How many saint children and holy maidens could compare to his elder brother Dishur? Not only that, he himself didn't really care about those saint children and holy maidens. His talent wasn't any weaker compared to his elder brother Dishur, and sooner or later, he would also become an era-suppressing genius. It was just that right now, his brilliance was temporarily overshadowed by his elder brother. However, on the other side, Qin Wentian had just reunited with his brothers. He was originally extremely happy in his heart, yet a single sentence from Du caused his mood to completely vanish. Shifting his gaze over, his eyes flashed with coldness as he stared at Du. In an instant, a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes, enveloping Du, causing him to frown. Only then did he start to size up Qin Wentian, who was beside Emo Qingcheng. You actually want to kill me? Du's countenance turned cold as he arrogantly spoke. How ridiculous! Someone like you isn't worthy of this fairy sister. Such a beautiful sister was tainted by you, what a pity. In the future, I will take good care of this fairy sister. Emo Qingcheng similarly radiated coldness. Du was very clear what he was saying. He was intentionally angering them. The coldness in Qin Wentian's eyes intensified. He stepped out as a long spear appeared in his hands. This long spear was only an ordinary weapon. It didn't exude any intense aura. Fan Lu stepped aside when he saw Qin Wentian walking over. Staring at the killing intent in Qin Wentian's eyes, Fan Li's heart trembled. He was extremely clear on how crazy Qin Wentian was. Back then in Granxia, Qin Wentian dragged the demon sword for Emo Qingcheng for 10,000 miles, sacrificing his blood to the demon sword to split apart the Pill Emperor Hall. You had no regard for his own life. Emo Qingcheng was his reverse scale, the brat. 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. Du stared at Qin Wentian as he neared. The experts behind Du wanted to take a step forward, yet Du stretched out his hand to stop them. Just watch, my elder brother can jump 2 levels and kill someone with ease. I can do the same as well. Today, I shall let the blood of this man bear witness to my journey to the immortal martial realm. The experts behind him halted their steps, but they didn't act. Although their young master was arrogant, his strength and talent were extremely high. He wouldn't feel too much pressure fighting against 5th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. Even if he wasn't a match for them, he would still be able to retreat unscathed. If you die in my hands, I hope that fairy sister won't hate me. If not, if she isn't willing, I can only use force. That wouldn't be fun. Du stared at Qin Wentian as he arrogantly spoke. His voice was piercing to the ears, causing the spectators to sigh in admiration. As expected of the little ancestor of the D clan, he had no scruples at all, even in the immortal martial city. Behind Du, the shadow of a ferocious bird shone with a resplendent green light, exuding a towering baleful aura. It was like a monster, staring at the approaching Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian advanced step by step. In the blink of an eye, the distance between him and Du was only 100 meters. Such a distance could be traversed in an instant. You are courting death. Qin Wentian coldly spat out. Astral light erupted forth as he executed stellar transposition. In an instant, his silhouette vanished from sight, leaving behind a series of afterimages. The spectators only saw that at the end of the afterimages, Qin Wentian's long spear pierced straight towards Diyu. At the instant the spear pierced out, Diyu felt his vision blurring. In front of him was a blood-colored space as boundless blood-colored light shot towards him, wanting to end his life. Not good. The people behind Diyu all had shocked expressions on their faces. The speed of this spear was too fast, so fast that it caused them to feel fear. They didn't even have the time to make a sound and the spear had already neared Diyu's head. There was no need to doubt the might of this spear. This spear strike was capable of ending his life. Save me! Diyu also let out a roar. Azure light instantly enveloped his entire body, and he suddenly leapt up. He was like a giant azure bird that soared into the sky in an instant, as if he wanted to travel into the distance in an instant. His speed was also extremely fast. Pung! A light sound rang out. The body of the azure bird froze in the air before it was flung through the air. Diyu coughed out a mouthful of blood as his countenance turned pale. That impact from the spear felt as though it wanted to shatter his internal organs. However, a look of joy flashed in Diyu's eyes. Just a little bit more and he would have been finished. Luckily, the speed of the azure rock was as fast as lightning, allowing him to avoid the fate of having his throat pierced by that spear. The spear merely struck his chest. Although he was injured, his life was saved. Divine weapon! Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. He was very clear on the might of his attack. If it had struck Diyu, with his cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, even if his defense was heaven-defying, his internal organs would still be shattered by that spear. But earlier the spear managed to block it. Diyu was clad in an extremely powerful divine armor that was able to block it. I want you to live a life worse than death. Diyu howled in rage, a ferocious light flashed in his eyes. He was forced back by Qin Wentian's spear, and coincidentally, the other experts had already caught up. They didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Crazy, who is this person? He actually dared to kill Diyu? The gazes of the spectators froze. This was the little ancestor of one of the 7 great clans, Diyu, one of the twin prides of the D clan, the younger brother of Di Shi. If this person killed Diyu, the entire D clan would definitely spare no expense to kill him. That spear strike earlier almost killed Diyu. This isn't a joke. This person's strength is extremely powerful. The hearts of the spectators trembled, while the eyes of Fan Lu and the others brightened. This fellow was as expected of a freak. After they exited the royal tomb of Grand Xia, they had experienced many tempering experiences and even stepped into the forbidden grounds of Grand Xia, experiencing a calamity there. Naturally, it was also a great stroke of good fortune for them. In addition to the inheritances they obtained in the royal tomb, the strength of each of them had increased greatly. But even so, there was still a gap between them and Qin Wentian. That spear strike of his was already extremely shocking. Diyu coughed out a mouthful of blood, staring fixedly at Qin Wentian. If it wasn't for his defensive divine weapon dissipating the vast majority of the impact, even if that spear strike didn't penetrate through his body, it would have already killed him. Earlier, he even boasted that he would defeat Qin Wentian. How could his killing intent not surge up into the skies? I've changed my mind. After I kill the 2 of you, I want to ravage these 2 women ruthlessly until they die. Diyu stared at Mo Qingcheng and Yun Mengyi, his eyes gleaming with a venomous light. With an intention of his will, the long spear vanished as the scarlet demon halberd appeared in Qin Wentian's hands. The blood in his body seethed as his eyes gleamed with a terrifying demonic light. Astral light erupted forth as his silhouette vanished once more. From the center of his brows, a terrifying beam of light shot forth, shooting into Diyu's mind. Diyu's mind was instantly filled with a dream devil state as he roared in rage. Kill him, kill him! The experts beside Diyu didn't expect Qin Wentian to be so crazy, actually wanting to kill Diyu. Terrifying auras erupted forth from them as they instantly blasted out their attacks towards Qin Wentian, wanting to block the halberd strike that would kill Diyu. Bang! Astral light flashed once more as Qin Wentian transformed into a series of afterimages, soaring up into the air. Careful up there! An expert roared in rage, only to see the scarlet demon halberd slashing downwards, wanting to pierce through Diyu's head. Get lost! One of them rushed towards Qin Wentian, and a beam of treasure light appeared. This treasure light transformed into a ferocious bird that grabbed towards Qin Wentian's body. Buzz! The scarlet demon halberd shot out. In that instant, the scarlet demon halberd in his hands vanished into thin air, soundlessly and without a trace. However, the treasured light from the scarlet demon halberd directly shattered. The body of the peak level 6th level, Heavenly Dipper Sovereign blocking in front of Qin Wentian was directly penetrated through. Fresh blood splattered as a terrifying force penetrated through the heart of that Heavenly Dipper Sovereign. No! The man roared. Young master, run! Someone roared in rage. The scarlet demon halberd pierced through that person's body, continuing to pierce towards Du below. That expert only had one last breath left, and a malevolent expression appeared on his face. He used all his strength to rush out, causing the direction of the scarlet demon halberd that pierced through his body to change. The crescent blades of the scarlet demon halberd sliced through his body, causing him to feel so much pain that he wished he was dead. However, he knew that he would definitely die. Even if he died, he wouldn't allow Qin Wentian to kill Du. This person had to be buried with him. Arg! A miserable shriek rang out, shaking the eardrums of the expert protecting Du. That was Du's voice. The crowd only saw the scarlet demon halberd piercing through Du's shoulder. In an instant, fresh blood flowed out, looking extremely miserable. At the instant he was attacked, Du took out a feather that shone with a terrifying azure light. A crazed look flashed in his eyes as he stabbed the feather into the air. A moment later, the body between him and Qin Wentian was directly severed. Qin Wentian could already sense a terrifying aura when the feather appeared. Astral light flashed, and when the feather sliced through him, his body vanished as he pulled out the scarlet demon halberd. Madness! This was truly madness. The crowd stared dumbfoundedly at this scene. Du still wanted to use this man to test his own combat prowess, but he didn't expect that this man wouldn't tolerate him insulting his wife. He acted with the intent to take Du's life. No matter what your status is, there was only a single word in his eyes: kill. At this moment, Du was in an extremely miserable state. Fresh blood gushed out from his shoulder. His right shoulder drooped downwards, his entire arm hanging limply. All the meridians in his body seemed to have been completely shattered, causing him to scream in agony. Ever since he was young, he was a heaven's chosen, surrounded by the stars. When had he ever been in such a miserable state? Chapter 558. That feather. Many people noticed the feather in Du's hand. Although Du was heavily injured, the instant that feather sliced through the air, a brilliant azure light illuminated the skies. The person standing between him and Qin Wentian was neatly sliced into two. In front of that azure light, the body of that person was like a piece of paper, easily torn apart. What a powerful treasure! A single feather actually exudes such a terrifying, baleful aura. The D clan of the 7 great clans of the royal sacred region has the bloodline of an ancient ferocious bird, the azure roc. They are proficient in the art of the azure roc, and it's said that the guardian beast of the D clan is a ferocious bird that has lived for tens of thousands of years. Could this feather have been plucked from the body of the azure roc? Everyone stared at the feather in Du's hand. Earlier, if Qin Wentian was a little slower, he would have been sliced into two by that feather. Luckily, Qin Wentian's speed was exceedingly fast, transforming into a series of afterimages. If he was a little slower, he would have already died. The protection of this little ancestor of the D clan was truly thorough. With this feather, even Heavenly Dipper sovereigns who wanted to kill him could be countered by him at any time. In fact, if celestial phenomenon ascendants were careless, they might even be ambushed by him. No wonder the guards around him were at ease with him fighting against Qin Wentian. However, they didn't expect Qin Wentian's methods to be so powerful. The moment he acted, Du didn't even have a chance to retaliate. That spear strike almost claimed Du's life, not even giving him the chance to take out the feather. The second halberd strike was similarly extremely dangerous. Only to see that the azure feather in Du's hand was activated at the last moment precisely because he wanted to take Qin Wentian's life. But who would have thought that the will of Qin Wentian's opponent would be so terrifying, directly penetrating into his brain, causing him to be in such a miserable state. Around Du, many people surrounded him, not daring to give Qin Wentian any more chances. These people all released their auras, their countenances were cold, and their killing intent permeated the air. Only to see one of them abruptly let out a long howl. This howl penetrated through the clouds, instantly traveling far away, causing the eardrums of everyone to tremble. Everyone instantly understood what this person wanted to do. He was summoning the experts of the D clan over. No matter who you are today, don't even think about leaving here alive. Only to see that the cultivation base of the person who let out the long howl was extremely powerful, at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper. He stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. If this person managed to leave here alive today, given the personality of this little ancestor Du, he would definitely vent his anger on them. Shameless boasting. A cold snort rang out, after which a few silhouettes clad in white walked out. They were all young women and were extremely beautiful, causing the eyes of the people in the surroundings to stare fixedly at them. What was going on today? Why were there so many beautiful women here? These maidens surrounded the battlefield, surrounding the experts from the Supreme D clan. Their eyes flickered with coldness as they stared at Du. Du of the Supreme D clan insulted the holy maiden of our medicine sovereign valley. If you apologize today, we can spare you. Holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley? The countenances of the spectators were all taken aback. After which, they turned their gazes onto Mo Qingqing as they instantly understood. No wonder this maiden's aura was so outstanding. She was actually the legendary heavens chosen from the medicine sovereign valley, the one who managed to concoct a 5th-ranked medicinal pill. The status of the medicine sovereign valley in the royal sacred region was transcendent, and they rarely participated in the disputes of the external world. However, no one dared to underestimate the strength of the medicine sovereign valley. The Supreme D clan was one of the 7 great clans. How could they not be incomparably tyrannical? Such a situation caused expressions of excitement to appear on the faces of the spectators. This battle was getting more and more interesting. One of the 7 great clans, the Supreme D clan, actually offended someone from the medicine sovereign valley. In that case, even if the Supreme D clan summoned their celestial phenomenon ascendants, they wouldn't dare to act against the medicine sovereign valley. If not, this wouldn't be a simple battle between juniors, but a war between 2 great sections. Those from the Supreme D clan also felt their hearts trembling as their countenances turned unsightly to behold. Young Master Du's words earlier weren't polite at all, saying that he wanted to abduct that maiden away to be his concubine, and even said some dirty words. If she was a young miss from an ordinary transcendent power, it would still be fine. But she was actually the holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley, a 5th-ranked alchemist. Those 8 era-suppressing geniuses represented the pinnacle of the martial path. This was the peak of the younger generation, while the holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley represented the pinnacle of the alchemy path. But now that both sides were in conflict, it was already impossible to make peace even if they wanted to. So it's elder sister holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley. In that case, that's even better, you can marry me. At most, I'll just let elder sister holy maiden be my wife and not a concubine. Du's countenance was malevolent. Although he was smiling, he gave off a sinister coldness. How arrogant was this little ancestor Du? Wanting him to admit his mistakes and compromise? Dream on. Mo Qingqing's countenance was ice cold. Because she had always been beside Qin Wentian, she didn't say much. However, Du had humiliated her again and again. Even a clay doll would have 3 points of fire. Not only that, during the period when she was away from Qin Wentian, her temper wasn't too good. Kill him. Mo Qingqing icily commanded. In front of Qin Wentian, Du said that he wanted to abduct her to be his wife. How could she not be angry? Yes. Those from the medicine sovereign valley stepped forwards, closing in on Du. Du was tightly gripping the feather in his hand, emitting a terrifying azure light. Fan Lu and the others were all extremely shocked today. Mo Qingqing actually became the holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley. They had been in the royal sacred region for quite some time now, and naturally had a clear understanding of the major powers in the royal sacred region. They had heard some rumors about the holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley, but they didn't expect that it would actually be Mo Qingqing. Who would have thought that during our reunion today, we would actually have to slaughter that little brat? Ouyang Guangxing coldly spoke. Lightning crackled around him as he exuded a tyrannical aura. Right now, his cultivation base was at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Back then, he and Chu Mang both obtained the inheritance of the Tyrant Emperor, causing their strength to rise by quite a bit. Other than this, Fan Lu, Chu Mang and Yun Mingyi were all at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. As for Qin Zheng, he had already stepped into the 5th level. However, Qin Wentian didn't find this strange. Back then in the unmatched realm, Qin Zheng and Yun Mingyi were the same as him. Both of them had the qualifications to cultivate the 36 mountains. At that time, even Ouyang Guangxing didn't have such an achievement. From this, one could tell how high the talent of Qin Zheng and Yun Mingyi were. One must know that there were many geniuses from the transcendent powers who entered the unmatched realm back then, but those who could obtain the qualifications to cultivate in the 36 mountains were extremely few. Fatty Chu Mang, that little bastard's feather is extremely powerful. You guys use your arrows to attack. Qin Zheng, use your spatial energy to restrict him. Yun Mingyi, restrict their movements. We will go and slaughter him. Ouyang Guangxing slowly spoke. Everyone nodded their heads. Evidently they were already used to fighting side by side. Most probably such a scenario had already happened many times before. Chu Mang and Fan Lu both took out their bows. Their astral souls and astral novas appeared at the same time as arrows appeared. The two of them soared up into the air and instantly unleashed a barrage of arrows, aiming for Diyu's life. These people truly don't care about their lives. They clearly know that their opponent is Diyu from the Supreme D clan, yet they still want to kill him. The spectators from afar felt their hearts trembling. This time around Diyu, this little ancestor, had truly met a tough opponent. Die for me, Diyu coldly snorted, clutching the feather in his hands tightly. Upon seeing the arrows flying towards him, his feather abruptly arced through the air as an azure light flashed, slashing apart everything in a radius of a few hundred meters. However, at the instant he waved his palms, the arrows abruptly changed directions, flying towards two sides. After which, they actually continued flying towards the direction of the azure light, causing the wind to howl in rage. You want to kill me with such an attack? Diyu coldly spoke. The ferocious bird behind him shone with a brilliant azure light, as the glow of a divine weapon circulated around him. Blasting out with his palms, a gigantic sharp claw manifested, slashing towards the incoming arrows. At the same time they were fighting, the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and the Supreme D clan had already started their battle. Instantly, the atmosphere in that area became chaotic as their astral souls and astral novas shone resplendently. Wait for me here. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice to a Mo Qingqing who was beside him. After which, he stepped out as his sword-type astral nova floated above his head. Instantly, a terrifying sword might manifested in the air. Qin Wentian's eyes were cold. Stepping out in the air, every step he took felt as though he was stepping on the hearts of the people around him, as though there was sword chi penetrating through their bodies. Protect the little young master. They stared at Qin Wentian, only to see a violent demonic chi gushing forth from him. At the same time, sword chi whistled through the air. Bang! Another step landed. Diyu groaned in misery as his countenance turned pale. Qin Wentian activated his bloodline power, unleashing the 7 Annihilation swordplay. How terrifying was that? He wanted to kill Diyu through the air. Those who were in front of Diyu all discovered that the 7 Annihilation swordplay couldn't block it at all. Not only was Diyu suffering from the attacks, they were suffering as well. When the 5th step landed, waves of sword chi gushed forth. Diyu groaned in misery as he coughed out fresh blood. At the same time, an ice-cold intent bore down on him. That was Yun Mingyi walking closer. Her terrifying freezing energy caused their bodies to be covered in frost, causing their resistance to grow weaker and weaker. My elder brother will be here soon. He will kill all of you. Diyu roared in rage as he unceasingly coughed out blood. Stay your hands down. As if in response to Diyu's words, an enraged roar rang out from the sky, bringing with it a torrential killing intent. In the distance, there seemed to be an incomparably resplendent cyan light flickering. The crowd seemed to see an ancient ferocious bird rapidly flashing over. That terrifying speed was simply horrifying. His cultivation base is clearly at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, but the aura he exudes is so strong that even 8th level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns wouldn't be this strong. Seems like D sure has arrived. These people are in for it. The hearts of the spectators mused. The era-suppressing heaven-chosen Dishur. He could even kill 9th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns with ease. How terrifying was his strength! All of you have to die, all of you have to die. Even the holy maiden will become my plaything. Diyu's countenance grew even more malevolent when he heard the voice of his elder brother. The feather in his hands frenziedly slashed out as he coughed out blood. He had never been in such a miserable state before. He wanted revenge. No matter who it was, they had to pay the price. Regardless of the saint's son or holy maiden, he wanted revenge. Die! Qin Wentian took another step forward, and as the 6th step landed, Diyu's voice abruptly stopped. The terrifying sword qi penetrated through his body, wanting to destroy his internal organs. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood, and was on the verge of death. However, that incomparably resplendent azure light arrived, bringing with it a towering rage. His eyes turned azure, and everywhere he passed by, no one dared to match his gaze. He could kill with a single glance. Pucci! A light sound rang out. A maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley directly died, transforming into a rain of blood under the azure light. That azure light was like a bolt of lightning, shooting towards Qin Wentian. Chapter 559. He's here. Dishur has arrived. That girl at the peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper died instantly. The spectators from afar felt their hearts trembling when they saw that azure light. Not long ago they had witnessed how powerful Li Tian was, and now they actually saw Dishur's strength. Given Dishur's personality, he wouldn't care about saint children or holy maidens when his younger brother was almost killed. That azure light was extremely fast. Even before it arrived, Qin Wentian already felt a stifling pressure gushing towards him. The baleful aura exuded by that azure light felt as though it could tear the heavens and earth apart, giving him an extreme sense of danger. Careful! Emo Qingqing's beautiful eyes widened in shock when she saw that azure light. She stepped forward as she called out in alarm. Qin Wentian's countenance was ice-cold. Stepping out, he executed the final strike of the 7 Annihilation swordplay, accompanied by the humming of his astral nova. Instantly, a boundless amount of sword might gushed forth with the body of his opponent as the center, frenziedly lacerating his opponent's body. Arr! A shrill cry rang out, resembling the roar of a ferocious bird. The tyrannical baleful aura transformed into a terrifying vortex that enveloped Qin Wentian. A beam of light tore through the vortex, penetrating through the sword might and directly grabbing towards Qin Wentian's astral nova. Pung! Even his astral nova was forced backwards. That beam of light was like the gigantic talon of a ferocious bird, swooping down from the heavens, aiming for Qin Wentian. Its might was unfathomably terrifying, and its attack speed was so fast that even the naked eye couldn't follow it. Qin Wentian felt as though the entire space around him was locked down. That beam of light transformed into the shadow of a ferocious bird, staring at him as a terrifying might enveloped the entire space. It wasn't that he had never seen a 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign before. Back then when he fought against Yi Kongfan, he had personally experienced the strength of a 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. However, Yi Kongfan was like an insignificant firefly when compared to the person in front of him. The disparity was simply too great. What was an era suppressor? They were practically invincible in the same realm, and surpassing realms was as easy as eating rice. The power of his bloodline erupted in an instant as the Scarlet Demon halberd struck out soundlessly, vanishing into thin air without a trace. With a loud bang, the Scarlet Demon halberd collided with the treasured light, and the terrifying rebounding force sent Qin Wentian flying. His arm that was holding onto the Scarlet Demon halberd felt as though it was about to split apart, and a sharp pain shot through his body. Borrowing the force of the rebound, Qin Wentian executed stellar transposition, instantly retreating far away. He only saw a green-colored silhouette floating in the air, exuding an unexcelled aura. His eyes were filled with tyranny, akin to the gaze of a ferocious bird, sharper than a sharp blade, capable of penetrating through people. Buzz! A gust of wind gusted by. He didn't continue his attack on Qin Wentian, but instead, appeared in front of his younger brother Diyu. Right now, Diyu was being supported by someone. It was unknown how many of his meridians had been destroyed, and he was on the verge of death. If Dishur had arrived a step later, Du would already be a dead man, even if he was on the verge of death right now. Retrieving a green-colored medicinal pill, Dishur fed it into Du's mouth. After which, a strand of green light seeped into Du's body, and the spectators instantly sensed that Du's life force was much more vigorous than before. At the very least, his life was temporarily preserved. However, when they thought of how this little ancestor Du was injured so badly today, the spectators couldn't help but to sigh. Du was tyrannical, yet he didn't expect that he would encounter someone from the Medicine Sovereign Valley who feared nothing in the heavens or earth, almost taking Du's life away. After he was healed, who knew if Du's personality would restrain itself a little? If Dishur had arrived a step later, Du would already be a dead man. If Du died, even if Dishur slaughtered all these people to avenge him, it would be useless. More and more people gathered here. All of them had expressions of interest on their faces. Dishur's eyes were cold to the extreme. Du stared at him and spoke in a low voice, "Brother, help me kill them all. Kill them all. Don't worry, I will avenge you," Dishur calmly replied, yet his voice contained an intense killing intent. He stared at the people in the surroundings as he commanded, "Protect the little young master well." Yes, everyone respectfully replied, protecting Du tightly. However, Dishur took a step out, his gaze sweeping over the crowd as an aura of savagery enveloped the entire space. Azure light flashed as a ferocious primordial bird appeared behind him. It was none other than the silhouette of an azure rock. He stared at Qin Wentian, his countenance cold as he stated, "Don't know the immensity of death." Dishur had personally witnessed Du almost being killed by Qin Wentian. One could very well imagine the rage in his heart. Everyone in the royal sacred region knew how much Dishur doted on this younger brother of his. Even if these people had extraordinary statuses, and even if the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was here, Dishur wouldn't care. As an era-suppressing genius, there was no need to doubt his talent and boldness. Why would he care about the identity of his enemies? "Careful," Yun Mingyi warned in a low voice. After which, the group of them all moved towards Qin Wentian. Dishur's strength was extremely terrifying. They naturally could feel it. Most probably, no one here would be able to block him. Qin Wentian gripped the scarlet demon halberd in his hands tightly. This was the first time he faced off against an era-suppressing genius. Not only that, the cultivation base of Du was 2 levels higher than him. From the earlier clash, he already knew that he had no way to contend against Du. However, his battle intent still gushed forth as he madly lunged towards Du. An era-suppressing genius, this was the target he wanted to defeat. Deep in his bones, deep in his blood, there was a burning excitement. This fellow. The spectators from afar could feel the battle intent radiating forth from Qin Wentian. Was he crazy? He was only at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, and even if his bloodline wasn't weak, didn't he know who he was facing? This was Dishur, an era-suppressing genius who had killed many at the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper before. The battle where Dishur rose to fame was when he was at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. In that battle, he was surrounded by experts from a powerful sect. There were many geniuses from that sect, and many of them were at the 7th or 8th level of Heavenly Dipper. However, after a single battle, all of them were slaughtered by Dishur. From then on, Dishur's name shook the entire royal sacred region, and he was hailed as an era-suppressing genius. Facing such a character, Qin Wentian's battle intent actually gushed forth. How could the spectators not be shocked? Busy. Dishur moved, he didn't waste words. His baleful eyes flickered with a terrifying killing intent, and his speed was as fast as lightning, much faster compared to Qin Wentian. Behind him, the shadow of an azure rock manifested, and his entire person transformed into a beam of azure light. His palms smashed downwards, and although it seemed simple, it caused Qin Wentian to fall into a desperate situation. His entire person was enveloped by a baleful demonic phantom. Fiend transformation art. Qin Wentian's heart pounded. His body transformed as demonic armor enveloped him. He didn't retreat, but rather advanced instead, rushing forward. Given his opponent's speed, it was extremely difficult for him to evade. Since that was the case, the only option left was to clash head-on. Die. With a howl of rage, the scarlet demon halberd in Qin Wentian's hands unleashed his strongest attack. The dreamscape gushed into his opponent's mind. Yet how resolute was Di Shi's will? His eyes were wide open, gleaming with a baleful light. That resolute will of his made it so that he wouldn't be affected by the dreamscape in the slightest. In his eyes there was only a single word: kill. Azure light flashed. That incomparably gigantic claw actually blocked the scarlet demon halberd, forcibly stopping it. The power of the scarlet demon halberd originated from the power of the dreamscape, but Qin Wentian's current strength wasn't enough to unleash the full might of the scarlet demon halberd. Although he was able to amplify the power of the dreamscape, it wasn't enough to affect Di Shi. But even so, with the sharpness of the scarlet demon halberd in addition to Qin Wentian's attack, the might of a single strike was extremely terrifying, yet it was actually blocked by Di Shi's attack. Di Shi grabbed out with his palm, causing Qin Wentian's arm to tremble. The scarlet demon halberd was flung to the side, and the treasured light transformed into a howling ferocious primordial bird, tearing towards Qin Wentian's body. The terrifying might contained within it felt as though it wanted to tear Qin Wentian into pieces. Ice seal! Yunmingyi coldly snorted. The power of ice sealed Di Shi's body, but it had no way to block his attack. Thunder God slash! Chu Meng and Ouyang Quangxing both unleashed terrifying attacks at the same time. The might of thunder and lightning slashed downwards, blasting towards Di Shi. However, Di Shi didn't even bother to glance at them. Merely at the fourth level of Heavenly Dipper, no matter how strong their attacks were, how could they threaten him? Astral light erupted forth as Qin Wentian retreated with explosive speed, his entire person transforming into a series of afterimages. Where do you think you're going? Di Shi coldly snorted. A terrifying pressure enveloped Qin Wentian, causing him to feel as though his entire body was enveloped by treasured light. It was as though he had sunk into a quagmire, and even the stellar transposition technique was no longer effective. Scram! Qin Wentian's Yuanfu howled in rage. His finger pressed down in the air as a violent surge of sword qi gushed forth, instantly transforming into a terrifying sword tempest that gushed towards Di Shi, wanting to devour him. Di Shi furrowed his brows. His palms blasted downwards as a green glow engulfed everything. Numerous ferocious primordial beasts howled in rage, penetrating through the chaotic flow of sword qi, blasting towards Qin Wentian. Puchi! Fresh blood spurted out as a bloody wound appeared on Qin Wentian's chest. At the same time, his body finally broke out of Di Shi's attack range as he hurriedly retreated backwards. What a powerful attack! I have no way to defend against it. The battle intent radiating from Qin Wentian was as strong as ever, but he had to admit that he wasn't Di Shi's opponent now. An era-suppressing character was truly powerful. He wasn't someone a genius like Yi Kongfan could compare to. Today you will die for sure. Di Shi continued stepping downwards, only to see a beam of sword light slashing through the air, shooting towards Di Shi. Di Shi lifted his palms and blasted out explosively, colliding against the incoming sword qi. However, he actually couldn't block it at all. The sword qi directly tore apart the palm imprint and continued on its way towards Di Shi. Di Shi's brows furrowed as the baleful aura he exuded grew even more intense. He blasted out with his palms once more as an azure light flashed, colliding against the sword qi. Instantly the sword qi was destroyed. A beam of light flashed by, instantly appearing in front of Di Shi. This person's entire body was filled with sword intent, pure and clean, akin to a sword. Although he couldn't be considered handsome, he gave off an extraordinary feeling, exuding the aura of a supreme heaven chosen. Ji Feishua from the battle sword sect. Di Shi stared at his opponent, his battle intent towering up into the skies. This was the first time he met someone who was equally as famous as him. He's Ji Feishua. The expressions of the spectators stiffened. Ji Feishua from the battle sword sect? How lively! A light laughter drifted over from afar. The gazes of the spectators turned over, only to see a flawlessly beautiful silhouette appearing. This young woman was actually comparable to the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. She exuded an aura of fragility, causing people to want to embrace her and protect her. Lin Xian she's here as well. This person was none other than Lin Xian She smiled lightly at Qin Wentian. Sir Qin is truly extraordinary. To think that you actually managed to attract 3 era-suppressing geniuses here." As the sound of her voice faded, the spectators were all startled. 3. Other than Di Shur and Ji Feishue, could there be one more? Even Di Shur and Ji Feishue started to search. Very swiftly, in a certain direction, in an inconspicuous location, they saw a figure exuding magnificence through the generations. This person was clad in white, and with just a single glance, he gave off an extraordinary feeling. Not only that, his figure was slender and extremely handsome. The flowing wind isn't romantic. The calm lake splits the moon. Shoots down the 9 heavens. Gu Lufeng. Ji Feishue murmured as a look of admiration appeared on his face. This person was the one he admired the most out of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Chapter 560. Gu Lufeng. Ji Feishue's voice caused the gazes of everyone to freeze as they stared at that magnificent character. Flowing wind and flying snow, both of them had arrived today. Gu Liufeng's white robes fluttered in the wind. His handsome countenance was as calm as still water, without the slightest ripple. This caused the hearts of many females from the major sects to pound. How handsome! Gu Lufeng is really as handsome as the rumors say. Those females mused in their hearts as they stared at the quiet white-robed young man. Gu Lufeng was definitely a legendary character in the royal sacred region. He came and went like the wind, appearing here today, but tomorrow, he would be tens of thousands of miles away. Gu Lufeng had never joined any sect before, and was extremely mysterious. The moon-beheading saber was cold, the calm lake severing the moon. The sun-shooting bow was cool, shooting the 9 heavens. One saber, one bow, unrivaled among those of the same generation. His saber could reap lives, his arrows could reap souls. There were people who said that Gu Liufeng's saber was as handsome as his person. The saber light was smooth yet poignant. His arrows were as carefree as his person, the bowstring moving. The reason why flowing wind and flying snow were placed together was because Gu Lufeng was proficient in the saber, while Ji Feishue was proficient in the sword. Their saber arts and sword arts were often compared by others, but if they were to fight, Gu Lufeng should be stronger because his cultivation base was at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper. As for Ji Feishue, he was younger than Gu Lufeng and was rumored to be at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. But now he seemed to have already stepped into the 7th level. These two were the targets of admiration for many females from the major sections. Especially for Gu Lufeng, there were many rumors about him in the royal sacred region, and many beautiful females from the major sects took the initiative to pursue him. However, Gu Lufeng chose to focus on the martial path and didn't pursue romance. Hence, the title Flowing Wind is not romantic. The calm lake severing the moon, shooting the 9 heavens came into being. How could such a seemingly perfect man not be liked by others? Even the princesses of ancient countries and holy maidens of great sects were willing to marry him, and their sects didn't have any objections. It would be best if they could pull Gu Lufeng, who didn't belong to any sect, into their own sect. Wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? Naturally, the number of gazes Lin Xian attracted definitely wouldn't be any lesser compared to Gu Lufeng. Gu Lufeng was the lover of the dreams of many women. In that case, Lin Xian, the number 1 beauty under the heavens, who was born with a delicate demeanor, would naturally be the dream lover of countless men. Just a single glance at her would cause the desire to protect her to blossom in their hearts. Just like what Qin Wentian had said, if purely comparing beauty, Lin Xian might not be as perfect as Mo Qingcheng. The hearts of the crowd were filled with excitement. 3 era-suppressing geniuses, Fairy Lin Xian, of the Celestial Maiden sect, and the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Mo Qingcheng, all appeared at the same time. From afar there were even more people madly rushing over here. Those from the Battle Sword sect also arrived. They came together with Ji Feishue and walked to the side of Qin Wentian. Staring at the silhouettes of Ji Feishue and Di Shur, Qin Wentian naturally knew of Ji Feishue. He was the 8th personal disciple under Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. Duan Han had once introduced this senior brother to him. Although Ji Feishue was younger than Duan Han, because he entered the sect earlier than Duan Han, he could be considered as the 8th senior brother of Duan Han. Duan Han was the 9th personal disciple, Ji Feishue was the 8th, and Lin Shui was the 7th. Upon seeing the scene in the air, how could the crowd not understand which sect Qin Wentian was from? So it turned out that he was from the battle sword sect. No wonder he was so arrogant, directly wanting to kill the little ancestor of the Supreme D clan. Since when had the disciples of the battle sword sect been afraid of anyone? Just looking at the lineup before them, if D sure didn't give up, the Supreme D clan would definitely suffer. Not only did they have to face the Medicine Sovereign Valley, they had to face the battle sword sect as well. Not only that, Lin Xian seemed to be acquainted with the young man who wanted to kill Diyu. She referred to him as Sir Qin. Hence, the identity of Qin Wentian attracted the attention of the crowd. They all wanted to know who this young man was. He seemed to have an ambiguous relationship with the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, as though they were a pair of lovers. Within the battle sword sect, comprehending 14 sword strikes, in the ancient country of Yi, he joined forces with the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to cure the human emperor's poison, aiding the human emperor in quelling the rebellion. He killed Yi Kongfan with a cultivation base at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, and the envoys of the Immortal Martial Realm sent him the Immortal Martial Medallion. He is the foster son of the human emperor, Qin Wentian. At this moment among the crowd, a scholar-like figure spoke, revealing Qin Wentian's identity, causing the crowd to be startled. They didn't expect this young man to have such an impressive background. They had all heard of the rebellion in Yi. The humiliation the Violet Thunder sect suffered. Yi Kongfan was killed by a young man at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, and this young man was accepted as the foster son of the human emperor, becoming a companion of the Holy Maiden. When this news first circulated out, no one knew if it was true or false. But now that they saw Qin Wentian almost killed Diyu for the sake of Mo Qingcheng, they all understood that the rumors were true. Comprehending 14 sword strikes, killing Yi Kongfan, a disciple of the battle sword sect, the foster son of the human emperor, the lover of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, and the holder of the Immortal Martial Realm Medallion. Seems like this young man was also a heaven's chosen. It was only because he was together with an era-suppressing genius that his radiance was overshadowed. If it wasn't for Di Shi's appearance earlier, his radiance would have been the most dazzling here, almost claiming Diyu's life. Things are getting more and more interesting, the hearts of the crowd mused. Draw your swords. Di Shi stared at Ji Feishue, his battle intent towering up to the heavens. Azure light flashed as a gigantic ferocious bird appeared behind him, staring at Ji Feishue with sinister eyes. Encountering a character on the same level as him, how could Di Shi not fight? He wanted to see what capabilities Ji Feishue had to be on the same level as him. Swish, swish, swish. Sword Chi whistled as a row of ancient swords appeared behind Ji Feishue. The ancient swords hummed as the sword intent they exuded was terrifying. For swordsmen there was nothing they couldn't conquer. At this moment Ji Feishue exuded an indomitable aura. An azure light flashed. Di Shi's body transformed into a beam of light as he sped towards Ji Feishue. His speed was terrifying, bringing with it a towering pressure. Azure runes flashed as Di Shi's palm slammed out towards Ji Feishue. It was as though a fearsome ferocious bird of prey was trying to grab Ji Feishue as a terrifying screech echoed out. Ji Feishue's palms trembled as a sword appeared in his hands. With a wave of his hand, a beam of sword light filled with destructive might slashed out, directly severing the sharp claws of the ferocious bird of prey. Bzz! A raging wind gusted as a hurricane manifested. A surge of demonic chi permeated the heavens and earth as an incomparably gigantic ferocious bird appeared in the air. It stared down at Ji Feishue as it flapped its wings frenziedly. In an instant boundless runic light flashed, transforming into a ferocious bird of prey that flew towards Ji Feishue. The attack power of any one of these ferocious birds is sufficient to tear apart an expert at the peak of the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. The hearts of the spectators trembled when they felt the violent might of the birds. However, they only saw Sword Chi revolving beneath Ji Feishue's feet. His footwork was exquisite, and his swordsmanship was even more exquisite. His sword danced about unceasingly, transforming into a rain of swords. Finally, the rain of swords converged into a waterfall of swords that flowed against the current, tearing everything apart. Die! Ji Feishue's sword light pierced through the air. That waterfall of swords collided with the gigantic ferocious bird of prey in the air, causing a terrifying shockwave to erupt forth. The body of the ferocious bird of prey was forcibly severed, as though the sky itself was being sliced apart. Di Shi retreated into the air, his baleful eyes staring down at Ji Feishue. The two of them actually had no way to injure each other. Both of us are heaven chosen. Why don't we compete again in the immortal martial realm? I'm afraid Sir Di won't be able to achieve your wish today, Lin Xian gently spoke. Di Shi turned his gaze over, his eyes gleaming with a resplendent light. His silhouette flickered as he instantly vanished, rushing towards the direction of Lin Xian. Fairy, since you can bring calamity to the masses, why don't you bring calamity to me, Di Shi, first? A cold voice rang out. Lin Xian's countenance didn't change. A bright light flashed as numerous clones manifested. Her fingers strummed the strings of her zither as the melody of slaughter shot towards Di Shi. However, Di Shi merely waved his hands, destroying the melody of slaughter unceasingly. The wings of the ferocious bird flapped frenziedly as a terrifying hurricane tore apart Lin Xian's clones. Lin Xian's voice rang out in all directions. Xian was just speaking casually. Sir Di, why must you bully a weak girl like me? If I can bring Fairy away, it can be considered as my wish being fulfilled, Di Shi tyrannically spoke, actually wanting to capture Lin Xian. His actions were exactly the same as his younger brother, Diyu. From afar, Gu Lufeng still calmly stood there. At this moment, a gust of wind brushed past his white robes as a bow appeared in his hands. It was none other than the sun-shooting bow. Vizi. Di Shi's gaze abruptly shifted over. He actually felt an extremely dangerous aura locking onto him. Shifting his eyes, he saw Gu Liufeng's arrow pointed right at him. Although they were separated by a few thousand meters, it felt as though the distance between them was so close. The crowd all turned their gazes in Gu Liufeng's direction, only to see that handsome silhouette exuding an unmatched magnificence. His long robes fluttered in the wind as he released his grip. In an instant, the arrow pierced through the air, directly arriving before Di Shi. The speed of this arrow was simply unheard of. Di Shi explosively retreated. His speed was already extremely fast, yet he still couldn't outrun this arrow. With a howl of rage, Di Shi's palms turned green, exuding an indomitable will as he slapped out towards the arrow. Numerous runic lights flashed, transforming into ferocious birds that blocked the arrow. However, piercing sounds rang out unceasingly as the birds were penetrated. Di Shi hurriedly evaded. A light piercing sound rang out as a drop of blood blossomed in the air. Di Shi's shoulder was grazed by the arrow as a trail of blood flowed out. How powerful! The surroundings fell into silence. Gu Liufeng's reputation of being able to shoot through the 9 heavens wasn't undeserved. Although his cultivation base was higher compared to Di Shi, he was still able to injure Di Shi with a single arrow. Such tyrannical strength caused the heartbeats of the crowd to quicken. Some of the female cultivators stared at Gu Lufeng with a strange glint in their eyes. However, that handsome eyes of his didn't waver at all. He kept his bow and arrow, as though he had just done something extremely ordinary. After which, he turned and departed the area. Xian thanks Sir Gu. Lin Xian stared at the departing silhouette as a brilliant light flashed in her eyes. Although Gu Lufeng shot out an arrow, he didn't even glance at her. Gu Lufeng. Di Shi stared at the departing silhouette as his battle intent towered up into the heavens. His palms touched the bloodstains on his shoulder. There was a terrifying corrosive energy there, and it was precisely this energy that allowed the arrow to break through his defenses, drawing blood with a single strike. Gu Liufeng's saber was as powerful as his arrow, able to sever throats with a single strike. Chapter 561. Several figures clad in white appeared beside Lin Xian protecting her in the center. Lin Xian smiled at Di Shi as she spoke in a gentle voice. Although both of you are part of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, there's still some disparity between us. Sir Di's strength isn't just a little bit weaker compared to Gu Lufeng. Not only that, in terms of bearing, Sir Di actually vented his anger on me because of Xian's words. How disappointing. Gu Lufeng. I will naturally avenge the death of that arrow. As for our strength, our cultivation bases are different. Who is stronger and who is weaker, we will naturally know after we enter the immortal martial realm. An azure glow radiated from Di Shi as his eyes gleamed with sharpness. He stared at Lin Xian as he faintly spoke, As for venting my anger on Fairy Lin, that's complete nonsense. D sure only wanted Fairy Lin to accompany me for a chat. How could I bear to destroy a flower so ruthlessly? Young Master D's method of inviting people is truly unique, Lin Xian faintly commented. Fairies' beauty charms all living beings. Naturally, I have to use extreme methods. Since Fairy is unwilling, I won't force you. D Shi's silhouette flickered as he stood in the air. His gaze once again turned to Qin Wentian as a cold killing intent gleamed in his eyes. He pointed his finger at Qin Wentian. Do you think that just because Ji Feishue can protect you, you will be safe and sound? Today you injured my brother. No matter who you are or what your identity is, you are destined to die today. As the sound of his voice faded, D Shi's silhouette dashed out once more. Ji Feishue coldly snorted. His silhouette flickered as his sword appeared in his hands. With just a thought he could unleash his sword. However, at this moment, D Shi's silhouette abruptly flickered as he changed directions, moving towards a group of people. Over there, Fan Lu and the maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were present. Impudent. Ji Feishue knew that he had been tricked. His silhouette flickered, yet how fast was D Shi's speed? Be careful. Qin Wentian called out. Yun Mingyi blasted out with her palms as a surge of frost energy gushed towards D Shi. At the same time, Qin Zheng stepped out as he unleashed spatial lacerations. However, he couldn't block D Shi at all. D Shi stretched out his palms as a gigantic bird manifested, tearing apart all attacks as it lunged towards them. The countenances of Fan Lu and the rest drastically changed. D Shi was simply too powerful, regardless of his speed or his attacks. Bang! Astral light erupted as the few of them simultaneously unleashed stellar transposition. Where do you think you're going? D Shi roared in rage as he blasted out with his palms. Treasured light radiated forth as numerous ferocious primordial birds tore through the air. Get lost! Chu Meng and Ouyang Guangxing's countenances drastically changed. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold light as a layer of spatial light enveloped his body. Senior brother, help me! Qin Wentian spoke. Duan Han and the others beside him nodded, and Qin Wentian stepped forward. Astral light erupted as he executed stellar transposition, directly heading in the direction of Du and the others. Duan Han immediately understood Qin Wentian's intentions, and a similarly cold light flashed in his eyes. Kill! A terrifying light flashed in the center of Qin Wentian's brows as a terrifying will of will gushed forth. Du, who had just recovered a little, instantly screamed in agony. Save me! D Shi's countenance changed. His attack had already landed. The fearsome primordial bird blasted Fan Lu and the others away as fresh blood splattered through the air. D Shi initially wanted to kill all of them, but Du's screams of agony caused him to instantly turn and rush towards Du's direction. However, Ji Feishue's sword light had already arrived, enveloping this entire space within a screen of swords. Get out of the way! D Shi howled in rage. His bloodline surged as an even more terrifying primordial bird manifested, transforming into an azure rock that exploded forth. You are too impudent! How could Ji Feishue step aside? With a flick of his wrist, he instantly slashed out a total of 49 times, his sword might lacerating apart the void, blocking D Shi's path of retreat. You dare! A thunderous roar shook the heavens and earth, causing the entire space to tremble. Astral light flashed in the air, converging into a constellation. Slash! Duan Han had no hesitation as he slashed out with his sword. The entire space transformed into night, enveloping all the protectors of Du. Qin Wentian, Duan Han and the others naturally knew that there were already celestial phenomenon ascendants here. Not only for their opponents, there were ascendants on their side as well. When the major powers headed to the immortal martial realm, there would always be ascendants accompanying them. Not long after Di Shi arrived, these ascendants were already waiting in the shadows. It was just that as ascendants they wouldn't easily interfere in battles between juniors. Even if there were casualties, they wouldn't interfere. And precisely because both sides knew that the ascendants of the major powers had already arrived, they all thought that this battle would end here. That was until Di Shi made a move against Fan Lu and the others, completely enraging Qin Wentian. Hence there was this scene. Du was a heaven's chosen of the younger generation of the Supreme D clan. His cultivation talent wasn't inferior to Di Shi, And in the future, there was a very high possibility that he would become an error-suppressing genius. Upon seeing Qin Wentian and Duan Han actually wanting to kill Diyu, the ascendants of the Supreme D clan naturally had to stop them. I didn't interfere. How would it be your turn to interfere? A beam of sword light flashed through the air, slashing towards the constellation. At the same time, a resplendent constellation millstone appeared, transforming into a tempest that separated Qin Wentian and the others from the ascendants of the Supreme D clan. A silhouette stood in the air. It was none other than Shi Xian and the others. The ascendants of the Battle Sword sect in Yi country had already acted, while the ascendants of the Medicine Sovereign Valley were protecting Mo Qingcheng. In their eyes, Mo Qingcheng's safety was above all else. Now that the battle was about to escalate, the first thing they thought of was to protect Mo Qingcheng. Leave! The supreme ascendants of the Supreme D clan roared in rage, gesturing for their subordinates to bring Diyu away. Too late. The beam of light from the center of Qin Wentian's brows frenziedly shot into Diyu's sea of consciousness, causing Diyu to scream in agony. The sword light in the darkness was still as bright as ever. Qin Wentian manifested a pair of demonic wings, and with a speed akin to a raging wind, he stabbed out with his halberd towards the crowd of Supreme D clan's Supreme D clan. However, this halberd strike vanished without a trace. Careful! The experts in front of Diyu were extremely nervous. They couldn't see the location of Qin Wentian's Scarlet Demon halberd, and could only unleash a large-scale attack, forming a human wall in front of Qin Wentian, as they frenziedly unleashed their attacks. BZ! Astral light flashed. Qin Wentian transformed into a series of afterimages, appearing extremely blurry in the darkness of the night, almost impossible to see clearly. Puchi! A light sound rang out. Qin Wentian's afterimage finally appeared directly above Diyu. When the Scarlet Demon halberd appeared once more, it pierced through Diyu's head, ending his life. Diyu didn't even have the time to scream. Art! The experts from the Supreme D clan frenziedly attacked Qin Wentian. At the same time, the spatial scroll on Qin Wentian's body flashed with an intense light as countless attacks blasted over, causing Qin Wentian to cough out a mouthful of blood. But after that, a spatial light flashed as his body directly vanished from this space. Diyu! The experts from the Supreme D clan roared in rage. Di Shi also frenziedly attacked Ji Feishue. With a howl of rage, the space around him trembled unceasingly. His eyes were bloodshot as he let out a low-sounding howl. Di Shi! Ji Feishue slashed out with his sword as he coldly spoke. This battle has already ended. You were the one who caused the death of your younger brother. Don't blame others for this. What sort of character was Di Shi? How could he endure such provocation? His attacks grew increasingly frenzied. Azure light flashed as the ferocious primordial spirit tore apart the heavens and earth. Ji Feishue completely adopted a defensive sword technique, and although Di Shi's attacks were powerful, it was still hard for him to injure Ji Feishue. The two of them were originally evenly matched. As for Fan Lu and the others, they were all injured. Mo Qingcheng led the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and passed some medicinal pills to them while ensuring their safety. On the other side, the experts from the Battle Sword sect and Shi Xian's side also held an absolute advantage against the experts from the Supreme D clan. Those from the Supreme D clan hugged Diyu's corpse as they howled in rage. Yet there was nothing they could do. Today they would definitely suffer a loss for sure. They had lost a young genius, yet they couldn't do anything to Di Shi at all. Not only that, the culprit who killed Diyu, Qin Wentian, had already used a spatial scroll to vanish. Earlier, he had only used the spatial scroll because he wanted to evade the combined attacks of those geniuses. If not, even if Qin Wentian didn't leave, Di Shi wouldn't be able to do anything to him. This time around, Di Shi is going crazy. His younger brother attacked Qin Wentian's friend, causing Qin Wentian to go berserk. Qin Wentian spared no expense to kill his younger brother. If not, both sides wouldn't have fought. The hearts of the spectators mused. Initially, they also thought that the battle wouldn't happen. After all, both sides had experts in the shadows, and it would be very difficult for them to shed all pretense of cordiality. But who would have thought that the winds and clouds would change so drastically? Di Shi was too arrogant, which led to such an ending. Naturally, this could only be blamed on Diyu for his arrogance. Most probably, he didn't expect that today would be the doomsday of a young genius like him. Staring at the crazed look on Disher's face, the hearts of the spectators mused. Although Diyu had temporarily died, it was still hard to say what would happen in the end. Disher would definitely take revenge, but would Qin Wentian be able to withstand Disher's revenge? Also, these friends of Qin Wentian, Disher wouldn't spare a single one of them. They could only pray that they wouldn't meet with them in the immortal martial realm. After all, celestial phenomenon ascendants weren't allowed to enter the immortal martial realm. Rumble! A towering rage towered up into the skies. Finally, Disher no longer bothered with Ji Feishue. He soared up into the air, his gaze staring disdainfully at Mo Qingcheng, Fan Lu and the others. After which, he glanced at his younger brother Diyu as he howled in madness. The immortal martial realm shall be your doomsday. Disher howled, his voice shaking the heavens and earth, causing the eardrums of the spectators to ache. Go! Disher roared again. The experts of the D clan carried Diyu's corpse and soared up into the skies, departing from this place. Evidently, they knew that they wouldn't be able to do anything to Disher in this situation. But as they stared at their departing silhouettes, everyone understood that the seed of hatred had already been sown. It was impossible for Disher and the D clan to give up on revenge. Ji Feishue frowned. After which, he turned to Duan Han. We have to find junior brother Qin as soon as possible. In the future, all of you have to be more careful. Try not to roam around alone. This Disher doted on his younger brother a lot, and now that he saw his younger brother dead, I'm afraid he would go crazy for revenge. That's also because he deserved to die. Duan Han coldly spoke. They were all prepared to give up. Yet Disher had actually triggered this huge battle. However, they were all silently on guard, knowing what they should do. Since the seed of hatred had already been sown, they could only be more careful in their actions in the future. What an interesting fellow. From afar Lin Xian laughed lightly. That Sir Qin was truly crazy. When he saw Disher acting against his friend, he didn't hesitate to sacrifice everything to kill Diyu. Chapter 562. In the inn, the others returned one after another. Upon learning that everyone was safe and sound, Qin Wentian set his heart at ease. In the following days, Qin Wentian didn't go out. Other than cultivating, he would spend time with Mo Qingcheng. Occasionally, he would find some time to drink and chat with Fan Lu and the others. Naturally, he didn't forget to inquire about Bai Qing's whereabouts. So it turned out that back then, after Fan Lu and the others exited the royal tomb, they gathered together and explored a few secret realms in Granxia. Coincidentally, they went to a forbidden ground in Granxia, the Devil's Statue Cliff, and encountered many dangers there. In fact, they almost couldn't even walk out from there, losing their lives. It was Bai Qing who saved them. They couldn't forget that in front of the towering devil statue, Bai Qing had unleashed the chaotic art of the heavenly devil, staring at the awakening devil statue. Bai Qing had bought them a split second of time, allowing them to exit safely. However, Bai Qing was still trapped in the devil statue cliff. No one knew if she was dead or alive. Upon hearing this news, Qin Wentian was extremely worried for Bai Qing's safety. But according to Ouyang, although Bai Qing had roamed together with them, she was extremely cold and didn't like to speak. Nobody knew what she was thinking in her heart, but they could all sense the loneliness and depression in her heart. Even if it wasn't for the sake of saving them, Bai Qing wouldn't have left the Devil's Statue Cliff. She would continue to stay there, pursuing the unknown mysteries, even if she lost her life. Yun Mingyi was a female. She should be the one who understood Bai Qing's state of heart the most. Her words caused Qin Wentian to feel uneasy. Yun Mingyi stared at Qin Wentian, telling him that Bai Qing had entered a heart devil, and she couldn't walk out of it. She treated her own life very lightly. Yun Mingyi's words lingered in Qin Wentian's heart for a long time, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He naturally understood that all of this had something to do with Bai Qing's experiences. Back then, the things the Bai clan did to him had already caused Bai Qing to walk on a stubborn path, starting to cultivate devil arts. Devil arts could easily affect one's state of mind, causing a heart devil to grow. It was extremely difficult to cultivate, and if one was careless, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. The personality of devil cultivators were usually extremely stubborn. Nobody could change that. After that, when they met again, Bai Qing had forcefully endured his attack on the heavenly fate-ranking platform, seeking forgiveness on behalf of her father and sister, Autumn Snow. Calling him Wentian Gij had caused the pent-up frustrations in her heart to ease a little, and in addition to the fact that he no longer held grudges against Bai Qing Song and Autumn Snow, Bai Qing finally showed signs of improvement. But after that, her master died tragically, and he, Qin Wentian, was also heavily injured. Thinking back to the time when he was young, that innocent and adorable little lass always liked to follow behind him, calling him Wentian Gij. Qin Wentian couldn't help but feel a little unbearable in his heart. He definitely had to make a trip back to Granxia to settle the matters there and find that lass Bai Qing. As for Qin Wentian, he had always been seriously cultivating and had never left the inn before. This wasn't merely because he was worried about the revenge of Di Shi and the others. Back then, he had personally witnessed the 4 era-suppressing geniuses, including Di Shi, his mortal enemy. Each and every one of them were exceedingly talented, and in addition to the other 4, as well as the geniuses from the 9 great sects and ancient countries, one could very well imagine how intense the competition in the immortal martial realm would be. Qin Wentian hoped that he could increase his strength as much as possible. The immortal martial realm was known by the people of the royal sacred region as the burial ground for heaven's chosen. This wasn't just an exaggeration. This time around it was unknown how many heaven's chosen would be eliminated, and as for those who managed to survive, they would definitely be able to stand out. The immortal martial realm was located outside the immortal martial city. This ancient city was built around the immortal martial realm. Every 10 years, the immortal martial realm was an independent realm. It was rumored that the master of the immortal martial realm was an immortal, a character on the same level as the sect leader of the royal sacred sect, the hegemon of the royal sacred region. He was a legendary existence above celestial phenomenon. There was also a rumor that the immortal martial realm was held once every 10 years, and it was precisely to filter out the geniuses of the royal sacred region, allowing all the heavens chosen to have a chance to enter the immortal martial realm once in their lifetime. The reason for this was because the master of the immortal martial realm was searching for a successor. In any case, there were many rumors regarding the immortal martial realm, but there were only a few that most people were willing to believe. Although it was known as the burial ground for heaven's chosen, there were still countless geniuses who were willing to roam the immortal martial realm. This was the golden age of the entire royal sacred region. Nobody would be willing to miss it. This burial ground for heaven's chosen was filled with boundless good fortune, and there were countless geniuses who rose up from the immortal martial realm. For those whose names were inscribed on the ranking monument outside the immortal martial realm, many of them had already become leaders of ancient clans, human emperors of ancient countries, and sect leaders of great sections. At this moment outside the immortal martial realm, there was a sea of people, so vast that one couldn't see the end of it with a single glance. Most probably all the people in the immortal martial realm were gathered here. This was the first time Qin Wentian witnessed such a grand scene. Back then, the ranking battle of the heavenly fate rankings in Granxia was already extremely magnificent, but when compared to the number of people who came to the immortal martial realm, there was simply no way they could be mentioned in the same breath. Firstly, the number of people in Granxia couldn't be compared to the royal sacred region. The disparity was too great. Not only that, the number of experts in Granxia was also far from being comparable to the immortal martial realm. It's really shocking. Fatty Fanla grinned. The group of them soared through the air, only to see that the air was filled with people. They didn't dare to move too fast, as they were afraid of colliding with others. Compared to the royal sacred region, Granxia is truly a desolate land of desolation. No wonder those experts couldn't be bothered to go to Granxia. Ouyang Quangxing commented in a low voice. He was similarly shocked. Granxia was once extremely powerful. It was one of the 3 great empires in the royal sacred region. It's just that after that, there were people who coveted it and plundered the treasury of Granxia. After a few thousand years, the experts of Granxia all left Granxia, resulting in the current Granxia. Yunmingyi sighed. This was like a vicious cycle. The stronger the place, the more geniuses there would be. And in the weaker places, even if demon-level geniuses were born, they wouldn't be able to retain them. This was a cultivation pyramid. The strong were all trying to climb to the top. Everyone was on their path, including the heaven chosen of the royal sacred region. One day, even if the royal sacred region couldn't retain them, they would still head to an even vaster world. How many people are there? Even 1,000,000 is considered too little. Can the immortal martial realm even hold so many people? Fan Li's lips twitched. The majority of them are here to spectate, and there are also some who are here to accompany their friends or send them off. For those who have truly stepped into the immortal martial realm, it's already not bad if there's 1 out of 10. Yi Lingshuang replied. After all, ordinary people wouldn't dare to step into the immortal martial realm. Just this number of people is sufficient to cause ordinary people to retreat. Thank you, beautiful sister. Fan Lu blinked his eyes as he stared at Yi Lingshuang. His narrowed eyes gleamed with a light that caused Yi Lingshuang to be speechless. She didn't know where Qin Wentian found such a shameless friend. His eyes would light up the moment he saw a beauty. However, Yi Lingshuang also understood Fan Li's temperament. According to Fatty's words, the love of beauty was innate. Qingcheng, don't enter the immortal martial realm. Qin Wentian held her hand, his gaze gentle. Mo Qingcheng had a sweet smile on her face as she replied in a low voice, "Why can't I enter? Your talent lies in alchemy. The immortal martial realm is a place to temper one's martial path. It's fine even if your cultivation is weaker. I don't wish to see you in any danger." How could Qin Wentian not know what Mo Qingcheng was thinking? Yet he still gently spoke, causing the smile on Mo Qingcheng's face to grow even sweeter. She nodded her head, "I will listen to you. But you have to promise me that you will definitely be careful in the immortal martial realm." "Don't worry, even if I can bear to lose myself, I can't bear to lose you." Qin Wentian squeezed Mo Qingcheng's dainty hand, causing an expression of shyness to appear on Mo Qingcheng's face. She rolled her eyes at Qin Wentian as she spoke in a lovable voice, "What a glib tongue." Initially, Qin Wentian had thought of asking Ditian to help him as well. But after thinking about it, he decided to be more conservative. Ditian was his other body. If something really happened to him in the immortal martial realm, at the very least he would still be alive. Hence he decided to dispel this idea. The group of them finally arrived at a location near the immortal martial realm. Up ahead, they could see a row of white-robed figures standing in the surroundings of a gigantic ancient monument. On the monument, the words Immortal Martial Realm were engraved, gleaming with a resplendent light. This 100-meter-tall monument was none other than the Immortal Martial Realm Monument. At the same time, it was also the entrance to the Immortal Martial Realm. About 100 meters in front of the monument, there were 81 stone pillars. The eyes of those in front all gleamed with sharpness as they stared at the stone pillars. The disciples from the ancient clans and sects all radiated a towering aura, as though they wanted to ascend the stone pillars. The silhouettes of 3 envoys flickered as they stood on top of the monument. Their gazes swept over the silhouettes before them as their gazes contained a terrifying penetrative power. Anyone who met their gaze, no matter the holy maidens or the princes of ancient countries, would all fall silent. This silence continued on, and gradually, the countless silhouettes all stopped moving. The vast space of 100 miles was incomparably silent. Just this scene alone caused the hearts of many to quicken. Those who have obtained the immortal martial medallion, come up the stone pillars. The envoys in the center of the immortal martial realm indifferently spoke. This voice of his seemed to penetrate through the void, spreading over 100 miles. The 81 people who have obtained the immortal martial realm medallion are the people that the envoys of the immortal martial realm look up to the most. Almost all of them are heaven chosen from the 9 great sects, ancient countries and clans. The gazes of the crowd turned to the front only to see a silhouette stepping out, landing on a stone pillar in the center. That's Di Shi from the Di clan, one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. It's rumored that his younger brother was killed by someone. After Di Shi, more and more people ascended the stone pillars. Gu Lufeng, that's Gu Lufeng, how handsome. That must be Li Tian, how majestic. The number 1 beauty under the heavens, Lin Xian she also obtained an immortal martial medallion. Who's that? She's actually so beautiful, and her beauty can even be compared to Lin Xian Not only that, her demeanor is extraordinary. Princess Jiaoyang of the Guangzhou Empire is truly outstanding. Who said that women are inferior to men? That's the saint child of the supreme demon sect. What a powerful demonic qi. Nangong Shuang of the Nangong aristocrat clan is here as well. I wonder if the Nangong aristocrat clan still hates the celestial maiden sect. One by one, the geniuses stepped onto the stone pillars. The 81 people who stepped onto the stone pillars were all geniuses of the heavens. Their appearance immediately caused a huge commotion. Chapter 563. The 8 era-suppressing geniuses were undoubtedly the most dazzling. The vast majority of gazes were locked onto them. Ji Feishue and Qin Wentian ascended the stone pillar together. The two of them were already acquainted with each other, and were also fellow disciples of the same sect. Naturally, their relationship would be much closer compared to strangers. The two of them stood on the stone pillar next to each other. Other than the two of them, there were 2 other people from the battle sword sect standing on the 2 stone pillars beside them. They were a man and a woman. The 2 of them were disciples from the other 2 mountain peaks. That cold and elegant woman stood under the sunlight, yet she gave off a sense of coldness, as though she was a celestial maiden under the moon, untouchable. Her position was the exact opposite of Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stood on the left of Ji Feishue, while she stood on the right. Lu Bingyu. The reason why Qin Wentian paid attention to this woman was naturally because of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. This woman was none other than the most beloved disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, Lu Bingyu. Within the immortal martial realm, no divine weapons or treasures were allowed to be used. The immortal martial realm was a world of its own, rejecting all external energies. In order to allow Lu Bingyu to have an even stronger trump card, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness didn't hesitate to take advantage of the human emperor of Yi Qingyun's precarious state, digging out a treasure from his body before giving it to Lu Bingyu. Right now, that treasure should have already been assimilated into Lu Bingyu's body, becoming a part of her. Qin Wentian silently mused. No one could tell what he was thinking from his deep eyes, but ever since the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness took away the treasure from the human emperor, Qin Wentian, the relationship between Lu Bingyu and Lu Bingyu had already been determined. Although they were from the same sect, they were enemies and not friends. Other than the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, the countless silhouettes outside the immortal martial realm were also surveying the others. Among these 81 heaven-chosen who obtained the medallion, the 9 great sects only took up 1/3 of the total number. The rest were all heaven-chosen from the various transcendent powers of the royal sacred region. Some had 1, some had 2. Although there were some unfamiliar faces like Qin Wentian, when the crowd mentioned that Qin Wentian was the one who killed Yi Kongfan as well as Diyu from the D clan, they didn't think too much about it. It wasn't strange for him to have an immortal martial realm medallion in his hands. Killing Yi Kongfan, who was 2 levels higher than him, and killing Diyu in front of Dishur, how gutsy and imposing was that? It was only a pity that his cultivation base was a little too low. Although it was rumored that the immortal martial realm tested one's talent, and would provide a level playing field for experts of different cultivation levels, there was no such thing as absolute fairness. At the end, they still had to rely on their absolute strength to fight for the fruits of this trip. This was a feast of great waves washing sand. Immortal martial realm, activate. The emissary on top of the immortal martial realm monument spoke. Instantly, rumbling sounds rang out as the gate to the immortal martial realm was pulled open. Countless gazes stared into the immortal martial realm, wanting to see clearly what sort of world it was exactly. They saw many floating islands, intertwined with each other, resembling floating cities. Just a single glance was enough to make one unable to forget such a scene. Are these the 81 floating bridges of the immortal martial realm? Although many had already heard about the immortal martial realm from the mouths of the previous participants, it was still extremely shocking to see it with their own eyes. Although the 81 floating bridges were called bridges, each and every bridge was like a world of its own, a type of tempering. These 81 floating bridges corresponded to the 81 medallion holders. And it was precisely because of the existence of these floating bridges that the immortal martial realm medallion was created. The emissary of the immortal martial realm chose the 81 participants because he didn't want them to clash against each other too early. Naturally, if the 81 of them were eliminated by someone else on one of the floating bridges, it could only be said that they were useless. The 81 of you, each of you will walk towards one of the floating bridges. Although the experience on each bridge will be different, the danger level is the same. As for your ending, you will have to depend on yourselves. As for the others, feel free to step onto any of the floating bridges and enter." An emissary waved his hands. Instantly, the 81 silhouettes on the stone pillars flickered as they advanced into the immortal martial realm. Qin Wentian and Ji Feishue walked side by side. The instant they stepped into the immortal martial realm, a formless heavenly might descended from the heavens. The great Tao was formless, yet there was a sense of pressure that enveloped all the participants who stepped into the immortal martial realm. Their countenances didn't change at all. Evidently, they already knew the general situation inside. Not only that, as the 81 participants chosen by the emissary of the immortal martial realm, their wills were all exceedingly tough. Given their strength, so what if their cultivation bases were suppressed? For heaven's chosen, they didn't rely solely on their cultivation base. Regardless of combat strength, comprehension, or will, they were all incomparable to ordinary people. Qin Wentian also roughly understood the situation inside. He had heard that the 81 floating bridges in the immortal martial realm would never change, but the dangers and opportunities within would change. As for the suppression on his cultivation base, it would be lifted sooner or later. Hence, what he needed to do now was to use the tempering in the immortal martial realm to raise his own strength before the suppression was lifted. He wanted to raise his cultivation base to the next level before the suppression was lifted. Staring at the 81 floating bridges before him, Qin Wentian couldn't help but feel shock in his heart. Each and every floating bridge was akin to a world of its own, leading to different places with different trials and dangers, as well as different opportunities. A sharp killing intent landed on Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's sharp senses sensed that this killing intent originated from different places. Other than Dishur, there were also those from the Violet Thunder sect. Qin Wentian didn't look at them. These were all things he would have to face sooner or later. But now there were even more dangers waiting for him. If he wanted to walk all the way to the end, the number of enemies he would have to face wouldn't be as simple as Dishur and the Violet Thunder sect. Many people flickered as they flew towards one of the floating bridges. Junior brother Qin, choose a floating bridge. One bridge, one world, it all depends on your luck. Ji Feishue spoke to Qin Wentian. Ji Feishue. At this moment, a voice drifted over from beside Ji Feishue. It was Lu Bingyu's voice. Turning his gaze over, Ji Feishue stared at that cold countenance. For the ranking monument of the immortal martial realm, I will be ranked before you, Lu Bingyu calmly replied. After which, her silhouette flickered as she sprinted towards a floating bridge. Very confident, Ji Feishue lightly smiled as he similarly stepped out. Lu Bingyu didn't look at Qin Wentian. Maybe she didn't know of the relationship between Qin Wentian and the human emperor. Turning his gaze onto the air, Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered like a gust of wind as he stepped onto a floating bridge. He who possessed the immortal martial medallion was the first to step onto this floating bridge. The other 80 participants all chose their own floating bridges. This way they wouldn't clash with each other prematurely. The floating bridge Qin Wentian was on was an independent existence. Although it was side by side with the other 80 bridges, it led to a completely different direction. He drew in a deep breath as he stared at the never-before-seen scenery in front of him. One bridge, one world. The army behind him finally entered the immortal martial realm, and all of them moved towards the floating bridges. In an instant, Qin Wentian could already feel an overwhelming aura gushing towards him from behind. Although there were 81 floating bridges, the number of people entering the immortal martial realm was simply too many. The number of people who stepped onto each of the floating bridges would always be over 1,000. Qin Wentian slowly walked on the floating bridge, his steps firm and resolute. The immortal martial realm was the golden age of the royal sacred region. He would definitely grab hold of this rare opportunity to improve himself. Halt! A thunderous voice drifted over from behind. After Qin Wentian, another person arrived on this floating bridge. This second person had already chosen his path, and when he saw Qin Wentian stepping onto the floating bridge, he immediately followed after him. There were 81 heaven chosen with the immortal martial medallion. Although Qin Wentian also had a glorious battle record, to the majority, the danger he posed wasn't as high as the others. At the very least, this was what Shi Kuang of the Heaven Crippling sect felt. It was precisely Shi Kuang who stopped Qin Wentian, telling him to halt. Qin Wentian indeed halted. Turning his head back, he saw Shi Kuang stepping onto the floating bridge. Behind him, the army of soldiers could be seen moving over. Qin Wentian didn't say anything, he simply stared at Shi Kuang. Staring at the deep yet calm eyes of Shi Kuang couldn't help but feel a sense of panic in his heart. This kind of feeling was extremely fatal, especially in the immortal martial realm. How could he feel fear just because of the gaze of someone? Although you have the immortal martial medallion, I think it's better for all of us to travel together. Shi Kuang suppressed his emotions, but he didn't say any more impolite words. It was as though he was afraid of Qin Wentian's calm yet invasive gaze. Shi Kuang faintly sensed that within that calmness of Qin Wentian's, there was an unfathomable amount of wild energy. If he was the slightest bit careless, he would be ignited and explode. Wentian, Yi Lingshuang arrived at the floating bridge. Upon seeing Qin Wentian, she immediately sped forward, moving to the side of Qin Wentian. After which, Fan Lu and the others also appeared. They naturally wanted to walk the same path as Qin Wentian. Hence they all followed him to this floating bridge. Only now did Qin Wentian retract his gaze from Shi Kuang. He smiled at Yi Lingshuang. Sister Lingshuang, let's travel together. The number of people on the floating bridge grew more and more, to the point where the space was almost filled to the brim. Qin Wentian and the others continued forward, their hearts filled with trepidation. In the world above the floating bridge, there were towering ancient trees and ancient buildings. But no matter how beautiful the scenery was, there was only a single path on the floating bridge. It continued to extend endlessly with no end in sight. The people behind started to form alliances. Many of them were fellow apprentices from the same sect, taking care of each other as they ascended the same bridge together. Just like Fan Lu and Ouyang Guangxing, they soon formed a small circle. This way they would be able to better protect themselves. Shi Kuang and the disciples from the Heaven Crippling sect formed an alliance. The other major powers did the same as well, including those from the 9 great sects. Duan Han didn't come to this floating bridge. He was very clear of Qin Wentian's combat prowess. Since both of them had suppressed their cultivation bases, it wouldn't be a problem to leave this floating bridge to Qin Wentian. He brought the others to another floating bridge. The other members of the Battle Sword sect didn't trust Qin Wentian as much as Duan Han did. Hence, although there were disciples from the Battle Sword sect here, they chose to form an alliance instead of joining Qin Wentian's alliance. Chapter 564. The floating bridges were extremely vast, but there was only a single path in the middle. Everyone started moving forward together, following the path. Gradually, they diverged from the other 80 floating bridges, heading in different directions. Maybe they would eventually meet again, but at the very least, they wouldn't meet before crossing the bridge. Cultivation-based suppression. Mandate suppression, how irritating, Fan Le gloomily commented as he walked. He discovered that his cultivation base had been suppressed to the first level of Heavenly Dipper, and even his will of mandates had been suppressed to the initial level of the second level. Although he could unleash more power, he couldn't unleash it at all. This made him feel extremely uncomfortable. The rules of the immortal martial realm are like this. At the start, they would give everyone a fair environment. This is a good thing for us. Once the suppression on our cultivation bases is lifted, who knows how many people would be able to kill us? Yi Lingshuang spoke in a low voice. Fatty muttered a few more words, but he agreed with Yi Lingshuang's words. Their cultivation bases were indeed on the weaker side here. Not only that, Fan Lu was extremely astute. He could clearly sense the lofty aura exuding from the people here. This kind of loftiness felt as though they wanted to devour everyone else, becoming the only one left in the immortal martial realm. He was very clear that there were many elites from the royal sacred region here. All of them were extremely ambitious. Although things were calm now, there was still a blazing fire in the hearts of everyone. What the hell are these? Fan Lu noticed a total of 18 silver puppets appearing in front of them. They were blocking the path of the crowd, standing in a formation. The test of the immortal martial realm has begun. The hearts of the crowd mused. Danger lurked in every corner of the immortal martial realm. Astral light flashed, transforming into arrows that pierced through the air, shooting towards the silver puppets. The bodies of the 18 puppets glowed with an intense silver light as the long spears in their hands pierced out at the same time. The silver light radiating from the 18 spears converged together, shattering the arrows into pieces. The attack power of each puppet is equivalent to an expert at the peak of the first level of Heavenly Dipper with an initial level of mandates. With all 18 of them working together, the power of their attack seems to be fused together, reaching the peak of the second level of Heavenly Dipper with an initial level of mandates at the advanced boundary. Qin Wentian's senses were extremely sharp as he analyzed. The silhouettes behind him all nodded in agreement with Qin Wentian's words. We can force our way in. Although their realms and martial wills were suppressed, it was not a problem for their small alliance to force their way through the first level's test. In their alliance there were 8 people. Qin Wentian, Yilingshuang, Fan Lu, Ouyang Guangxing, Chu Mang, Yunmingyi, Qin Zheng and Mu Feng. Ouyang and I will take the vanguard, Qin Zheng and Yunmingyi will support us from the flanks, Fatty and Big Bro Chu Mang will suppress us from the back, while Sister Lingshuang and Mu Feng will stand in the middle to prevent any accidents. Qin Wentian replied. Such an arrangement was indeed reasonable. Although the first test of the immortal martial realm wouldn't be too monstrous, it was still better to be more cautious in case there were any accidents. All right. Everyone agreed with Qin Wentian's plan. The army behind them was also happy to let Qin Wentian and the others test the waters first. Naturally, they waited quietly. Let's go. After getting into formation, Qin Wentian commanded as he dashed towards the 18 silver-colored puppets. Because of the formless suppression, they couldn't even release their astral novas and could only release their astral souls. Qin Wentian transformed into his demonic form as a demonic armor appeared in his hands. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as a heavenly hammer appeared in his hands. Since he wanted to open a path, he naturally had to launch a tyrannical attack. Ouyang Guangxing also released his astral soul. It was extremely dazzling. His entire body glowed with lightning and fire as he dashed forward. The 18 silver-armored puppets simultaneously launched their attacks towards Qin Wentian and the others. Yet another dazzling spear strike, capable of penetrating through everything. BZ. A raging wind gusted by as both Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing unleashed their attacks. How terrifying was the force behind their attacks. At the instant Qin Wentian's heavenly hammer blasted out, the entire space trembled. Although their cultivation bases and wills of mandates were suppressed, the usage of energy and innate techniques were still unfathomable. The attacks of both parties collided together. Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing directly rushed into the midst of the silver-armored puppets, forcing them back. However, these puppets seemed to have an undying body. They lifted their palms and blasted out a second round of attacks, their spear techniques still as dazzling as ever as they slashed towards the two at the forefront. At this moment, Qin Zheng and Yunmingyi unleashed their full power. The power of ice and the power of space erupted forth at the same time, blocking the spear lights. Qin Lu and Chu Mang had already prepared their swords, and the instant their attacks collided, the 8 of them had already rushed into the center of the encirclement, advancing forward. We can't kill them, we can only force them to retreat. The spectators understood in their hearts when they saw this. Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing once again unleashed their attacks, blocking the spear light in front of them. Although there was some pressure, they still managed to safely pass through the formation of the 18 puppets, arriving at the other end of the floating bridge. If there's only one of us, it would be extremely difficult to pass through. Qin Wentian mumbled as he landed on the bridge. The spectators naturally knew that although Qin Wentian and the others appeared to be having an easy time, that was only because of their teamwork. If they were alone, unless they were an extremely demon-level character, they would definitely die. From this point, one could see that the difficulty of the immortal martial realm was extremely high. Just the first checkpoint already had such a level of difficulty. This also forced those who hadn't formed an alliance to form one after another. Let's go quickly. Those at the back, upon seeing Qin Wentian and the others leaving, didn't dare to waste any more time. They didn't want Qin Wentian and the others to be the first ones to obtain the benefits. Hence, more and more people started to force their way through, using their fastest speed to pass through the 18 puppets. Under the alliance of the strong, the passing rate was extremely high. The stronger one was, the more confident they would be, daring to race against time. As time passed, the death rate gradually increased. Qin Wentian and the others didn't have the time to pay attention to this. They continued moving forward, and not long after they came to a halt. An incomparably gigantic demonic beast hovered in the air in front of them. Its gigantic head was right in front of them, and if they wanted to pass through the floating bridge, they had to pass through the head of this demonic beast. What demonic beast is this? This demonic beast was entirely black in color, with malevolent-looking scales covering its body. It resembled a serpent demon, but there was also a faint shadow of a flood dragon. Black Jiao Python, the black mist it breathes out is extremely corrosive, Yi Lingshuang replied. A black Jiao Python at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. The corrosive mist it breathes out can easily kill us. Upon feeling the cold gaze of the python, Yi Lingshuang's countenance turned extremely unsightly. Why was the 2nd level so difficult? The cold eyes of the black Jiao Python stared at them, as though it understood Yi Lingshuang's words. A demonic glint flashed in its eyes. There must be a way. The immortal martial realm wouldn't leave a path of no return, Qin Zheng spoke in a low voice. After which, he turned to the black Jiao Python. Brother Python, can you tell me the rules? The black Jiao Python stared at Qin Zheng, its sinister eyes gleaming with a cold light as it replied, I am the rules. It wasn't strange that the black Jiao Python could speak in the human tongue. Demonic beasts at the Heavenly Dipper realm could naturally speak in the human tongue. And if a demonic beast wanted to experience the life of a human, it could even shed its demonic form and transform into a human. However, demons had their own paths, and many demonic beasts didn't like the human form. It was just like how humans wouldn't like the form of demonic beasts. If not, back then when Qin Wentian could transform into a great rock, he wouldn't have tried so hard to transform back into a human. This demonic beast is truly arrogant, Fan Le murmured. The black Jiao Python stared at him as it grinned. You better be careful. Fuck, brother Python, don't be so vengeful. Fan Le grumbled, cursing in his heart. This demonic beast at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper actually dared to be so arrogant? If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation base was suppressed, he wouldn't have bothered to waste words with it. But now that the black Jiao Python was guarding the checkpoint, he couldn't afford to offend it. The black Jiao Python didn't say anything. It only stared at Fan Lu as the others gradually caught up. Brother Jiao, I have something here for you. At this moment a silhouette stepped forward. With a flash of light, this person tossed a gigantic bead of demonic qi towards the black Jiao Python. The black Jiao Python swallowed the bead in a single gulp, after which its triangular eyes flashed with satisfaction as it stared at that person. I will follow the normal rules. Watch carefully. After speaking, the black Jiao Python started to spit out a black-colored mist. Complementing its breathing, it breathed out rhythmically. The corrosive nature of the black mist was extremely terrifying. Even from afar, people would feel a sense of danger. If they were struck by it, their bodies would definitely be corroded. How troublesome. A thought appeared in the hearts of the spectators. The so-called normal rules referred to the fact that the black Jiao Python was breathing out rhythmically. It seemed like the black Jiao Python didn't dare to let people off easily. Many thanks, Brother Jiao. These are all people from my Supreme Demon Sect. The young man spoke to the group of people behind him. The black Jiao Python nodded its head. So they are from the Supreme Demon Sect. No wonder they are so familiar with the nature of demonic beasts. It's rumored that snake demons are all lustful and greedy. Not only did this person from the Supreme Demon Sect give gifts, he even addressed the black Jiao Python as Brother Jiao. Jiao sounds better than pythons. The spectators mused in their hearts as they saw the person from the Supreme Demon Sect rushing out. At the instant the black Jiao Python breathed out, that person who was already waiting at the side unleashed his speed to the extreme. His body was clad in demonic energy as he instantly dashed past the head of the black Jiao Python. The black mist that the black Jiao Python breathed out only touched him a little, yet it instantly corroded his defenses. This caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. This person had long been prepared, and it was clear that the black Jiao Python had the intention to let him pass. After which, the second person from the Supreme Demon Sect also rushed over. Although he also passed, his leg was injured. The third person was also in a dangerous situation. The fourth person had one of his legs corroded away. As for the fifth person, he was enveloped by the black mist and completely transformed into a lump of flesh and blood before disappearing completely. The hearts of the spectators trembled. Brother Jiao, I have a good item here for you. Yi Lingshuang walked up as an exquisite little sword appeared in her hands. Although divine weapons couldn't be used here, as long as they didn't unleash their might, there wouldn't be a problem. If not, once the power of a divine weapon was unleashed, a calamity would descend upon this world. The black Jiao python didn't say anything. It stared at Yi Lingshuang as a lustful expression flashed in its eyes. This scene caused Fan Lu to be infuriated as he cursed. This beast is actually lusting after women. Snake demons are lustful creatures. The spectators silently mused. Could it be that this serpent demon had designs on women? Qin Wentian and the rest furrowed their brows, only to see the black Jiao python glaring at Fan Lu with a venomous expression on its face. In this place it was the rule. Chapter 565. Idiot, you've angered me. The sinister triangular eyes of the black Jiao python flickered with a venomous light. In this place it was in charge of the life and death of these people. These people captured it and gave it a set of rules. As long as it followed the most basic rules, it could do whatever it wanted. The only rule it had to follow was that its body was not allowed to leave its original location. It could only guard the gap, and at the same time, it had to breathe out with its breath to block those who wanted to pass under its body. As for the other rules, it could do whatever it wanted. This meant that as long as it wanted to, it could kill without fear. Although the black Jiao python was cunning, it also understood that it couldn't afford to anger the crowd. If not, what would happen if everyone joined forces to kill it? It would die. A team might not be able to kill it, but what if 2 or 3 teams joined forces? The black Jiao python wouldn't provoke everyone to join forces. To these humans, the black Jiao python was a test. They would definitely think of a way to pass this test. Passing under its body was the simplest method. The black Jiao python didn't know that a young man in front of it was currently contemplating. Its eyes flickered with a strange light. Although this black Jiao python is powerful, if we can recruit more people to our side, we would be able to kill it easily. Wouldn't this go against the original purpose of the immortal martial realm? Wouldn't there be other unforeseen circumstances? Qin Wentian silently speculated. He felt that there might be a possibility, hence they couldn't do this. But if the black Jiao python was intentionally making things difficult for them, wouldn't it be too much for their team to join forces? If not, if they had to think of a way to pass, Qin Wentian was confident that he would be able to withstand the black Jiao python's attacks. But what about Yi Lingshuang, Fan Lu, and the others? Fan Lu was also staring at the black Jiao python, staring at its venomous eyes. A strange light flickered in Fan Li's eyes as he transmitted his voice to Qin Wentian. Boss, should we kill this beast? Qin Wentian didn't feel anything strange when he heard Fan Li's words. Fatty had always been bold. Since this black Jiao python had designs on them, they had no other choice but to act. Thug. Qin Wentian spat out a word, causing the surrounding crowd to be stunned. Why did this fellow suddenly say such a vulgar word? Even a beast dares to be so arrogant. An evil light flickered in Fan Li's eyes. As the sound of his voice faded, the hearts of the spectators shuddered. Seems like these fellows didn't intend to follow the rules of the immortal martial realm. The test was supposed to be conducted by walking past the black Jiao python, yet these fellows were prepared to make a move. However, this was in line with everyone's wishes. If they were to fight, wouldn't they be able to pass through easily? When they thought of this, they couldn't help but laugh in their hearts. They didn't know if these few fellows would be able to deal with the black Jiao python. Although they had the advantage in numbers, in front of absolute strength, numbers were nothing. If the black Jiao python in front of them was a 5th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign, it would be useless even if all of them attacked together. If they couldn't even break through the defenses of the black Jiao python, wouldn't that be courting death? However, if the black Jiao python was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, it wouldn't be a problem for them to kill it. But if there were only Qin Wentian and the others, it would be extremely difficult for them to do so. The defense of demonic beasts was innately strong, and this black Jiao python had the unique characteristics of a flood dragon. Its scales gleamed with a cold light, and in addition to its cultivation base, even 1st level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns would find it difficult to break through its defenses. These 8 were truly audacious. Are you guys courting death? The gigantic body of the black Jiao python wriggled on the spot, unceasingly inhaling and exhaling black mist. The corrosive energy contained within was extremely terrifying. We mustn't be struck by the black mist. The corrosive energy can easily corrode our bodies, turning us into a pool of blood. Mu Feng reminded as everyone nodded their heads. Those with bloodlines all activated their bloodlines. Bloodlines were innate abilities. The immortal martial realm naturally wouldn't suppress them. Stab its eyes blind. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Fan Lu nodded his head in agreement. The eyes of this beast are extremely despicable. It actually dared to stare at Sister Ling Shuang. Despicable indeed. Onying Guangxing cast a deep glance at Fan Lu, causing Fan Lu to silently curse in his heart. What did Ouyang Guangxing mean by this? Was he scolding the locust tree while pointing at the mulberry tree? The gaze of a fatty staring at a beauty wasn't despicable. It was filled with admiration. Do it. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, the countenances of the others turned solemn. After which, Qin Wentian took the lead and dashed out, activating the fiend transformation art. A set of demonic wings appeared on his back, ready to protect him at any moment. Die! The black Jiao python spat out a mouthful of black mist at Qin Wentian. The terrifying corrosive energy permeated the air, and at the instant it breathed out, Fan Lu and Chu Mang's arrows already shot out, aiming for the eyes of the black Jiao python. Upon seeing the arrows shooting towards it, the black Jiao python closed its eyes and used its perception to sense them. It breathed out another mouthful of black mist, chasing after Qin Wentian, who was using stellar transposition. A long spear appeared in Qin Wentian's hands. It wasn't a divine weapon, it was just an ordinary mortal spear. Using stellar transposition, his silhouette instantly appeared in the air as he stabbed his spear towards the eyes of the black Jiao python with the speed of a bolt of lightning. The black Jiao python opened its jaws wide, wanting to swallow Qin Wentian whole. If Qin Wentian dared to come any closer, it would swallow both Qin Wentian and his spear whole. Mu Feng! Qin Wentian called out. Mu Feng's silhouette transformed into a blur as he blasted out a series of blood-colored palm imprints into the black Jiao python's jaws. After which, he instantly executed stellar transposition and retreated together with Qin Wentian. And indeed, at the instant they retreated, the black Jiao python abruptly closed its jaws, causing the space around it to tremble. However, the blood-colored palm imprints had already been blasted into the black Jiao python's jaws. So it turned out that Qin Wentian's attack earlier was merely a feint. The black Jiao python was enraged. Its gigantic head dashed towards Qin Wentian and the others. Its body was extremely long, hence it didn't need to move to control its attacks. It spat out another mouthful of black mist, wanting to engulf Qin Wentian and the others within it. Ice Seal! Yun Mengyi's ice attribute energy instantly enveloped the black mist. In that instant, Fan Lu and Chu Mang's arrows frenziedly shot into the black Jiao python's jaws, causing the black Jiao python to howl in rage. Qin Zheng blasted out with his palms as his spatial energy enveloped the entire room. His palms flickered to the side as he sucked the black mist away. Roar! The black Jiao python let out howls of agony. Evidently, the poison in its body had taken effect. How could Qin Wentian and Ouyang Guangxing be polite? They immediately dashed into the air, frenziedly attacking the opened eyes of the black Jiao python. How powerful was Qin Wentian's spear technique? Furthermore, he was attacking the weak eyes of the black Jiao python, causing it to howl in agony. Ouyang Guangxing's thunder god slash caused its eyeballs to explode. Before we recover our cultivation basis, it's best not to antagonize these people. Many mused in their hearts. It wasn't that Qin Wentian and the others were strong. After all, there were many heaven chosen among those who entered. However, Qin Wentian's group of 8 were decisive and ruthless in their attacks. The key point was that they seemed to have a very good relationship with each other, and had a tacit understanding with each other. This caused people to feel trepidation in their hearts. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the black Jiao python to be killed by the 8 of them on the spot. Its huge body lay there lifelessly. That damned fatty actually jumped onto the black Jiao python's corpse and fiercely stomped on it. Let's go. Qin Wentian's heart didn't fluctuate too much. They had only just entered the immortal martial realm. Since the others could save themselves some trouble, they naturally followed after them. There were even some who stared at Qin Wentian's back as cold light flickered in their eyes. Although there were tests in the immortal martial realm, there would definitely be good fortune later on. Although they hadn't fought against each other yet, the moment they fought for treasures, the fire in their hearts would definitely erupt. Not long after, Qin Wentian was dumbfounded. Not only him, everyone else was dumbfounded as well. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. Boom, boom, boom. Thunderous sounds rang out unceasingly, causing the hearts of everyone to pound. These thunderous sounds were the sounds of footsteps. In front of them, a gigantic demon with a height of over 100 meters appeared. Its head was as large as a house, and one had to tilt their head upwards to see it. Its feet covered a distance of over 10 meters, and the place it stepped on was the only exit for them. Nobody had any thoughts of fighting. This gigantic demon resembled an ox demon. It seemed to be in a deep slumber, repeating the same action over and over again. Lifting its feet and stomping down, the rhythm was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Even if it maintained the slowest rhythm, if one wanted to pass through, they would still need the extreme speed of someone at the peak of Heavenly Dipper. And if it increased its rhythm, even a third-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign with a second-level mandate of wind at the transformation boundary wouldn't be able to pass through. In other words, if one encountered a fast rhythm, only death awaited them. If one encountered a slow rhythm, it would depend on one's speed first and luck second. Everyone shut their mouths. Other than the thunderous rumbling sounds, there were no other sounds. Everyone was conversing through voice transmissions. They were afraid that if they were the slightest bit careless, they might wake up the gigantic demon. If that happened, only death would await them. The gigantic demon could trample them to death with a single stomp. Based on our current cultivation base, even if we use stellar transposition, we won't be able to pass through the fast rhythm. But if it's a medium rhythm, we can still use stellar transposition. Qin Wentian and the rest exchanged voice transmissions. Stellar transposition was an innate technique that they had all cultivated. Nobody dared to cause trouble for them. As long as we don't encounter a fast rhythm, we will be fine. Anyone who encounters it would die. Very swiftly they came to a consensus. Sister Lingshuang, let me carry you. Qin Wentian spoke to Yi Lingshuang. He was the most proficient in stellar transposition. His bloodline power and other movement techniques had no way to stack his speed with stellar transposition. Hence, this time around he could only rely on stellar transposition. Yi Lingshuang, who had already communicated through voice transmissions, could only nod her head in agreement. After which she climbed onto Qin Wentian's back, allowing Qin Wentian to carry her. However, before them there was already someone who was preparing to move. That person had a pair of wings on his back as his mandate of wind enveloped his body. Evidently, this person was someone who excelled in speed. At the instant the gigantic demon lifted its foot, his body was like a gust of wind as he sped forward. Fast, so fast that only afterimages could be seen. The hearts of the crowd pounded rapidly, only to see the gigantic foot stomping down once more. That person was already on the verge of passing through. Bang! As the foot stomped down, the hearts of the crowd instantly stopped beating. The gigantic foot lifted up once more, only to see that there was nothing in front of them. Only bloodstains could be seen on the ground. The bodies of several people involuntarily trembled. Even with such speed, they still couldn't pass through? Earlier, that person's speed was only at a medium tempo. Many people had expressions of despair on their faces. They knew that the speed of that person earlier was already extremely fast. Who? Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. Yi Lingshuang leaned on Qin Wentian's back as she spoke. Wentian, I won't go over, I don't want to implicate you. If he didn't carry her on his back, Qin Wentian would have a higher chance of passing through. Sister, believe in me. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. He walked to the foot of the gigantic demon and drew in a deep breath. Earlier, when he saw that person, he didn't choose the right timing. The instant the gigantic foot landed, Qin Wentian had already dashed out. Stellar transposition erupted at the instant the gigantic foot lifted up. He had calculated the timing to the most precise instant. Boom! When the gigantic foot stomped down once more, Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Yi Lingshuang, who was on his back, opened her eyes. She didn't die. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light. He passed through. On the other side of the gigantic foot, the hearts of the crowd trembled. Such a movement technique was so fast. It's my turn. Qin Zheng stepped forward, drawing in a deep breath as he did the exact same action as Qin Wentian. He passed. Qin Wentian and the rest all had expressions of excitement on their faces. But for the others, there were many who had expressions of jealousy on their faces. Let me do it. Fan Lu walked out, his eyes flickering with excitement. Stellar transposition, he dashed out. Rumble. At the instant Fan Lu moved, a thunderous boom reverberated in the air, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. It was as though a towering demonic qi was unleashed. Someone had used the power of lightning to awaken the gigantic demon. Staring at the gigantic foot that had just lifted up, Qin Wentian could see the look of despair on Fan Li's face. No! Qin Wentian howled in rage. They have a movement technique on them, we can't let them pass. As Qin Wentian howled in rage, a person glared at Ouyang Guangxing and the rest. You're tuning into the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.